Mike Hawthorne, Phil Hill and John Surtees also won titles for Ferrari in the 50s and 60s, and the cars back then were beautiful, and they even sounded great, didn't they? Anyway, Ferrari went 11 years without winning a title until Niki Lauda won in 1975 in the iconic 312T. Throughout much of the 80s and 90s, though, Ferrari looked like they'd never go all the way again. Le Professeur Alain Prost came pretty close in 1990, but lost out to his bitter rival and former teammate at McLaren, Ayrton Senna. It was only when John Todt recruited a swathe of staff from outside of Italy, including Michael Schumacher, that the glory days returned 21 years after their last driver's title. The turn of the century saw the prancing horse sprint to an unprecedented 5 consecutive championship doubles. And after Schumacher left, Kimi Räikkönen reclaimed the driver's title immediately. But despite employing 1,500 people, the Iceman remains the last Ferrari world champion. So, 16 constructors' titles, 7 more than McLaren, and 15 drivers' titles, 4 more than, again, McLaren. Ferrari are truly Formula One's top team. Forza Ferrari.
Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Jim White and Simon Jordan, and we're live on talkSPORT. So with Isak refusing to play for Newcastle again, how hardball can the club now afford to be? Do Newcastle call Isak's bluff? Meantime, as the Spanish approve Villarreal versus Barcelona in Miami, Florida this December, are La Liga finally about to walk the walk? Also today, are club brands and players' brands one and the same? Should sporting events be child-free zones? Is there such a thing as too much access for broadcasters? Are Manchester United still an unknown quantity? Rio Ferdinand gives us his view on that later. And is there any worth in Crystal Palace fighting to the bitter end against UEFA? It's Jim White and it's Simon Jordan, and we're live on talkSPORT.
100% engagement. Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
So I see, looking at my weatherometer, it's going to be 31 degrees in London.
Indeed.
Later this afternoon. If anyone is dressed and smartly dressed for the weather, it's my chum, Mr. Jordan. Good morning.
The man from Del Monte.
the man
from Del Monte.
The man from Del Monte. Good morning to you, mate.
Morning.
I mean, when it's hot, it's hot. And I've lived in London many years. You're from these parts. But by God, when it kicks in, it is warm down here, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I like nice weather, don't you? I mean, we get enough bad weather.
Yeah.
We spend our time complaining about that. So we should bask in the reflective glory of a nice, bright sunshine. Sunlight is the best disinfectant.
I love that.
It?
One of
There's a few people around here that need a bit disinfecting.
Yes. That's one of your many phrases that I love. I haven't heard "I don't have a dog in this particular fight" for a long time. That was one of my early favourites.
Right. I must reawaken that one. Bring it out of the vault.
The temperature is rising by the minute in the northeast, because this morning, and no doubt you heard Ali and Gabby, but news came through that Alexander Isak has really set the cat amongst the pigeons. It's all come through a quote from a tweet, I should say, from David Ornstein. I know David well. He's a highly respected journalist, works for The Athletic. About a couple of hours ago, Simon, Ornstein tells us, Alexander Isak adamant he will not play for Newcastle again. Even if window closes without exit, The 25-year-old views that his Newcastle career is over and no wish to reintegrate. Club says he's not for sale, but exploring the market amid Liverpool interest, and the striker wants Liverpool. That was according to David Ornstein. Alex Crook has been reporting exactly the same thing. And now the place is an uproar. Now, it's my understanding that the squad, the Newcastle squad, the players and the staff haven't been in for a couple of days. They've had a couple of days off, and they're all in there later. I'll get your take on this later on, Simon, as how the ownership might view this. But it struck me that just a matter of months ago, I was up in the northeast on the occasion that Newcastle played Arsenal. It was a packed house, of course it is. It always is at Newcastle United. And the fans were in fine voice. And Alexander Isak that day scored the only goal of the game. And he spoke to me afterwards.
You know, I love it here, and I love playing in front of this crowd and these fans. And you know, we just want to keep winning. I just want to do good and keep scoring goals, and we will all be happy.
I love it here, and I love it in front of these fans. And he was talking to me just straight after the end of the game, and he was thrilled to have scored the only goal of the game. And now this, Isak adamant he will not play for Newcastle again. If you didn't hear Gabby on breakfast, he really let loose.
Wow. I mean...
Wow. Who does he think he is, by the way?
Correct.
Like,
Correct.
Listen, I can have banter with Newcastle, but like, who do you think you are, mate?
Correct, mate.
Who do you think you are? Disgusting. What that club's done for you.
And by the way, have a think about
Jesus.
this. Have a think about this. If you're Liverpool, or you're Liverpool fans, is that the kind of person you want to be signing?
Real Madrid won him in 2 years when he's 27. He'll do the same to you.
Of course you will.
Wow.
Of course you will.
Ali, and the fact that Newcastle missed out on Shesko, have got every right to say, listen, you're going nowhere. We've lost Callum Wilson. We can't get Wisher over the line yet as well. We're not going into the season. They've got Villa on Saturday. Who does this guy think he is? Like, you've had a fantastic season.
Yeah.
Settle down a bit, mate. If it doesn't suit the club, shut up. Get your boots on. Big season for Newcastle. Want to start the season well. Villa away, tough game. And now you're saying you're adamant you don't want to play. Like, what?
That's unbelievable.
Wow, that's wound me up.
That was Gabby and Ali just a short time ago. So months ago, Isak standing with me at St James's Park. I love this place. He scored the only goal of the game. They beat Arsenal by a single goal to nil. Now reports that he's adamant he will not play for Newcastle again. Simon, my goodness, I cannot wait to hear you let go on this. How hardball can Newcastle now afford to be with Isak?
Well, in part, it's their own fault. The vacuum of leadership that seems to exist in Newcastle has created an entitlement in the player that they can trot out these platitudes about what they believe they had an understanding towards, or what gentleman's agreement, or what they were led to believe is now being reneged on, as a backdrop to suggesting they can behave as they want. If the leadership had been clear and specific and explicit to the player from the outset, and not allow it to be seeded in the player's mind and his representation that somehow or another they're going to achieve what they want, then we may still have a problem, but we might not quite have the same problem that we've got now. Gabby is right and wrong in equal measure. First of all, Isak doesn't owe the club anything. Isak signed for the club and has played for the club and performed well for the club. So it's a partnership between the club and the player. The club didn't give him anything. The club gave him a contract and he played to his natural ability. So the idea that, you know, that look what Newcastle's done for him, what Newcastle would have done for him if he hadn't played very well would have been bugger all. That's what they'd done for him. They'd be trying to send him out the door. But because he's done well for them and done his job, it's a Faustian pact. So the idea that look at what Newcastle have done for him, well, look what he's done for Newcastle. So I get the point there. The reality of the situation is very simple. We are talking about quotes that are not attributed to the players. We're talking about understandings from journalists, and I do not suggest that David Ornstein doesn't know what he's talking about. He's a top journalist and he probably will have been fed this, but we haven't got any direct quotes at this moment in time. So the player is using the media to funnel information through so that he can say, well, I didn't actually quite mean that when the time comes to pass.
Of course, no doubt
we know that these things will be resolved.
Yeah.
We have wars going on, we have countries in dispute, we have terrible situations around the world, and at some point these things come to a resolution, and this will come to a resolution at some point. My hope for Newcastle is that they concentrate the mind of this player. What I'd like to see in situations like this is the unions do something meaningful for a change, like talk about the players' conduct and expectation of players and how they should play for their club. Because if a player is suggesting through the media, whichever media channel it is, that he's not going to play for the club again, then that shouldn't be something that should be allowed, because a contract has to mean something.
Right.
It's not about contracts being breached, like the guy that sued UEFA for the compensation clauses as a result of the Russian club that didn't want him anymore and then held his registration. And we've seen all the freedom of argument around contracts in recent times. This is a player that's got a 3-year contract with Newcastle United. And if Newcastle want to be a football club of significance, they have to control their own destiny.
So if you're Newcastle, are you calling Isak's bluff?
I am calling two parties bluff. I'm calling, if indeed bluff is expression, I would have said to Liverpool, and I would imagine there has to be had some conversation, you know, you will pay this price or you will go away. It's really simple. You're not going to agitate. You can do as much as you want, and you can do it in a fashion that you believe is befitting of a big football club, but you're not going to get him for less than this. And you, son, are not going for less than that. So if they don't meet that expectation, you will do as you're told, in the same way that Marinakis filled the void. Whatever you may think about the idea, or it's very simple, Simon, to say what you would and wouldn't do because you did it 20 years ago. Well, it's just been done by Marinakis.
What, Morgan Gibbs-White?
Because he made clear in the player's mind and the player's representation and the idea that people were being inappropriate in their conduct. I will set you guys on fire unless you play properly with me and my football club.
Yeah.
Metaphorically speaking.
One of the key lines in this bombshell tweet from Ornstein, to my mind, is when the word reintegrate comes along. Has no wish to reintegrate.
Yes, but Jim,
if he has no wish to reintegrate, it's going to be a bloody hard job for Eddie and everybody else here.
But you just played a clip.
Get him back in.
People change their minds. People change their positions, and people change. They can adapt their shtick in the same way that you just played out a message from him at the time, which I imagine was pretty apt. I enjoy playing in front of this football club, football fans.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean he enjoys playing in front of this football fans for the rest of his natural born life, does it?
No, I know that, but we're talking about a few months ago.
So then it's not.
If Liverpool weren't in big for him,
so it's not beyond the.
Would he be saying this? No, he wouldn't.
So it's not beyond the wit of man for him to change his position on the fact that he doesn't want to reintegrate, if indeed he has the courage to actually say that out loud himself. Because he won't have the courage to say it out loud himself, because he'll realise that it's directly attributable to him and there's no row back from that. Right now, there's loads of room for row back for everybody.
Yeah.
There's loads of room for everybody to go, well, I never said this and he never said that, because no one's saying anything on the record.
Which, why now, Simon, should Liverpool increase their offer? Isak's doing the hard graft for them.
To a point. Depends how resolute Newcastle are and how significant a football club they think they are.
Do you know something? It took me back. And I think Isak's got to be careful, because it took me back to, I think it was 97, 98. I'd just gone to Sky. Pierre Van Hooijdonk, once of Celtic, then at Nottingham Forest. He was successful initially with Forest. He said he'd been told previously he could leave the club and that the club's owners had failed to deliver on their promises to him in regards to strengthening. Forest they played hardball, refused to allow him to be transfer listed again, but he went back over to Holland and trained with NEC Breda, virtually saying, "Tell me tell me when this is all sorted." It wasn't sorted, and the club won the day. He had to come back, and he played for them again. Not for long.
I would suggest
but he had to come back.
I would suggest that the dynamics have changed. Players have got more control of their own destiny after 27 years after that event. But again, it goes
very similar situation.
It has a similar feel about it, because it's a player that doesn't want to play for a football club all of a sudden because he thinks there's an opportunity better for himself, and he's entitled to think that. As is Isak. What he's not entitled to do is down tools. Now, we constantly hear this ridiculous notion that agents want everything tied up. They want to know exactly where they stand. And now we live in a world where they can turn around and say out loud, we had an understanding. We had a gentleman's agreement. I've never heard so much crap and excuses made for not doing things properly or reworking and re-engineering the information to your own favour.
So answer me this. Who can afford to dig their heels in hardest now? The club or the player?
It depends what you mean by fault. Do you really think that the Saudis give a monkeys about 150 million quid? They don't. They're not running the football club, it would appear.
Well, they do when there's PSR.
Well, they do and they don't right now, because ultimately they're being very compliant with the football establishment. But notwithstanding that, I don't think they're actively involved in running the club on a day-to-day basis. I'll be interested to see who is running it. Darren Eales is the chief executive, very capable operator. He stepped out due to ill health. You've got other people in the mix. The sporting director that a year ago everyone was saying was the problem is now everyone's saying could have been the solution.
Right,
so
Paul Mitchell's gone.
Yeah, but a year ago he was a problem.
And you're saying what Alan Shearer's saying. Shearer's saying, I don't know why they haven't appointed anyone yet. or if that has hindered them in the transfer market, because I'm not inside the club, but from outside the club, it's not a good look. It's a mess. It begs the question, who's making the big decisions? Now, if a decision has to be made, we don't know who's going to make it. What decision would you make?
If I was in situ.
Right.
But I wouldn't have let it get away from me, the way that's gotten away from them. If you start the dynamic very clearly in the way that potentially others do, which is very clear to the player. First of all, we don't have an understanding. Second of all, you're not going to do this. Third of all, it's on our terms. End of discussion. Get your head around it. You shut your mouth, agent, and understand your position in the equation, and we'll see where it falls out. If Newcastle, if Liverpool want to buy you, they'll pay 150 million quid. If they don't pay 150 million quid, you're not going. Right, so you be clear on that.
And you're not going, and you're confident you can reintegrate them to the squad.
But what they've done, Jim, in most things in life, if you allow somebody to create their own narrative, they'll start to believe their own version of the truth, which is now that there's a sense of entitlement that actually we should be able to move. We've been told this, and probably none of the above is true, but you've let that train leave the station. It's about how you put it back into the situation where you've got some control over it. I hope that Newcastle are bold enough, big enough, and strong enough at ownership level to turn around and say, I don't think so, son.
Wow. Okay. Let's put it out there this morning. Newcastle fans listening to this, and you're already onto us in huge numbers. So why not come to air? 03717 223344. How hardball should Newcastle play this as a club? Or are you ready to say to Alexander Isak, good luck or good riddance? But anyway, get in your bike. 03717 223344 81089. the 25th of this month. Newcastle against Liverpool. Interesting. I wish I knew now what I will find out then. I'd love to know in whose colours Alexander Isak will be. Because the cat has well and truly been thrown in amongst the pigeons this morning. The top journalist David Ornstein telling us Newcastle, of course, have a lot to think about here regarding the situation with Alexander Isak. Because a couple of hours ago now, David Ornstein tweeted, Alexander Isak adamant he will not play for Newcastle again, even if the window closes, without the exit of the 25-year-old. Liverpool, we know, have bid £110 million, but the offer was rejected. Newcastle are holding out for a lot more than that. But as you rightly point out, Simon, Saudi-owned Newcastle, do they need the money? No. But 150 million said to be the magic figure. But at the moment, Isak's saying, that's it, I'm done with Newcastle. An enormous number of you are trying to come through to us this morning, and I'm delighted about that. 03717 223344. Simon and I do the show, but it's your show, and we make that clear to you. There's a message just in front of me there. I'm done with him. It's all over for me and Isak. I'm a big Newcastle fan. He's thrown everything in our faces today, and he's shown the club and us the greatest disrespect possible. Who does he think he is? Kevin's a big Newcastle fan. Kevin, you heard Simon in Full Throttle a short time ago. Where do you stand on this? Are you done with Isak?
Good morning, guys. Yes, I'm 100% done with him. I never thought Isak would behave this way. He always seemed to be quite a nice sort of chap, but he's just thrown everything at us, and really I would put him in the reserves for the rest of the season. I would not sell him to Liverpool at all under any circumstances. Just make him play with the reserves and treat him with the disrespect he's treated Newcastle United fans, and more so Eddie Howe, because Eddie Howe doesn't deserve this.
Kevin, Simon's right beside me as always. Is that doable, Simon? Throw him in the reserves?
Well, everything's doable. I mean, everything has a cause and effect, doesn't it? I think you never do things with emotion attached to it. You do things with a resolve and a thought process that achieves the best outcome for you. And the situation for Newcastle is that the conventional wisdom will say, if you've got a player that's unhappy, get him out of the building. The cause and effect of that is you get him out of the building, the next player that's unhappy does the same thing. So you've got to set a culture inside a football club that you mean what you say and you say what you mean. I think it's Newcastle's, I think in part with all due respect to the Newcastle fans, because they're not party to this observation, but the Newcastle ownership, which has been wonderful for Newcastle post Mike Ashley, it's done most of the things it said it's going to do, has let this situation get away from them. This situation was always going to come up. Isak was always going to be sought after. He was always going to be a player in demand. So there was always this position where they needed to clarify very clearly with the player what they were going to be doing with him, because we can't listen to players turn around and say we had a gentleman's agreement, we had an understanding, because it's all rubbish.
But Simon, what more can Newcastle do? He's got 3 years on his contract.
Well, they can communicate very clearly to the player.
They've said you're not going for 110 million. Get on with it.
But I think that the player has built up. As I say, we can only look from the outside in and judge it from what we're being allowed to see, and ultimately what we're seeing being quoted through other sources that the player may be utilising for his own advantage, or the agent may be utilising. If you are much stronger and more robust from the outset, you set the rules of engagement, you set the manner in which people are prepared to operate, and then they really have to go off the reservation in terms of be front and centre themselves, rather than use channels and use back channels and use message carriers. They'll have to do it themselves. Now, there's an element of that going on because Isak is apparently staying away from the club, not doing this, training in Spain, but we don't know the mechanics of why that might have manifested itself.
Well, he's apparently back now.
Well, he's back now. So the reality of it is what we're all looking at now is a set of circumstances that are going to play out to a conclusion. My belief is if the Newcastle had been stronger in the same way that Nottingham Forest were strong enough with Morgan Gibbs-White, when that situation reared its head, when big clubs don't want a player to leave, more often than not, that player doesn't leave. They leave on the terms of the club. In this instance, Newcastle are morphing from a club that's very big in Newcastle with a very passionate fan base into a club that wants to be amongst the legacy football clubs.
Yeah.
And the step is a difficult one
because
the owners are well seeded financially. They're pretty compliant with the governance of the game. They're not pushing the envelope. In this instance, I think the vacuum of leadership has allowed Isak and his agent to do what they're doing.
What would your message to Isak's agent be this morning?
I don't think it needs a message from me. I think Newcastle need to make a decision about how far they're prepared to push this with the player and sit with it. I would imagine that somewhere between 110 and 150 million quid gets this deal done, because Liverpool don't get their way and Newcastle don't get their way.
Right.
Otherwise, it's not a deal, is it?
You spoke about legacy clubs. Liverpool is a legacy club. Many Liverpool fans in amongst a huge number of Newcastle fans trying to get through. I'll take one. Ricky, you're a big Liverpool fan. Good morning. Where do you stand in all of this?
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on the show. If I was as a neutral, I think Newcastle are right as well. They have the power and they've got the player and they've got a right to what they say. But I think as a Liverpool point of view, they want the player. Stop messing around and go and buy him. Give them 150 million. Just say, right, okay, we'll put 130 million plus add-ons. Yeah, we want them. We'll give you that now. Instead of 110 million, because they know they're not going to get him for 110 million. Isak's right as well. He wants to go to a bigger club. He's got ambition. He's not going to fulfil his ambition at Newcastle. Yeah, and it's wrong. He shouldn't say now, I'm not going to play for them again. He could do it nicely and say, look, guys, I want to go. Liverpool are obviously in contact with the agents. They should put the money up front and say, here we are. We want the player now. And, they've got a point of view as well. So you have
of
to
course.
On both ends.
But, Ricky, you think that Isak could not fulfil his career ambitions at Newcastle?
No, because let's be honest. I know they're not going to win the Premier League. They're not going to win the Champions League. Yeah, they're a decent club. They're well run. Also, as well, Isak has to be careful, because what's going to happen is he's going to end up going to Liverpool. Imagine the backlash and the booze he's going to get from the Newcastle fans.
Oh, absolutely. And you boys play them at the end of this month, and it's live and exclusive in talkSPORT. Ricky, thank you for that. Charlie, I want to squeeze you in. You've been waiting patiently. So many calls, but you're with us. Big Newcastle fan, what do you want to say?
I agree with Kevin. I'd keep him in the reserves for the next year. But there is one deal that I would take from Liverpool. They offered 110 million. Newcastle need a midfielder. Why not 110 million and Harvey Elliott? I think that would be a nice deal, and I can see both parties agreeing to that. And secondly, if I can just say, Simon, I'm a big fan. Why don't you just apply for the job at Newcastle, go in there and just sort it all out? And I think you'd have a backing of 100,000 Newcastle fans there.
Do you apply for jobs?
I don't apply for jobs. I doubt it. Can you imagine a Londoner going up to Newcastle, like London Mafia, when Dennis Wise and Tony Jimenez and all that crowd went up to Newcastle? I don't think you guys took very well to them, did you?
Yeah, no, exactly. Charlie, before you leave us, do you think Isak could fulfil his career ambitions at Newcastle at your place?
I think before the statement today, I think it would have been a bit 50-50. I personally would have said yes. But if this is true, what's coming out today, then I don't see a way back. But I wouldn't sell unless it's right for Newcastle, because otherwise you're just going to open the door for anyone to do that. It's a World Cup year. Isak's only going to be hurting himself, surely.
Yeah. Listen, thanks for the call. So many of you trying to get through. This will move along, no doubt, as often happens with us. It will move along while we're on air. Any development to this will bring you first and fastest right here in talkSPORT with Simon and myself. Isak adamant he will not play for Newcastle again. It's Jim White and it's Simon Jordan, and we are live on talkSPORT courtesy of Selco. It's where the trade goes, and at 10:30 we know where we're going.
Premier League teams have got a load of crazy nicknames. Ever wondered where they came from? Some are pretty straightforward. Arsenal are the Gunners because they were founded by a group of munitions workers, and Bournemouth are the Cherries because their old stadium was built right next to a cherry orchard. Then there's Everton. They're dubbed the Toffees, but why? Well, because when the club was formed, just down the road there were two local toffee shops. Ipswich Town nicked their nickname off their opponents in the late 90s, Birmingham. The term Tractor Boys was chanted as a way to tease the team about their farming background, but they started using it themselves as a way to cheer on the team in victory instead. Take that, Birmingham. Let's head to Leicester, famous for more than just a red, well, orangey cheese and Jamie Vardy. Leicestershire's also the birthplace of fox hunting, hence the Foxes. Crystal Palace's nickname came from an extreme makeover. They were having a nightmare run in the 70s, and when they were relegated, their manager, Malcolm Allison, wasn't having it. I know what will make us better, he thought, a new nickname. The Strong and Deadly Eagle sounded like a pretty good bet. And there's more to that story. Brighton used Palace's nickname to inspire their own. Ooh, bird, they thought. Let's just pick a different one for us. And so, in a heated match between the two teams back in 1976, when Palace fans began chanting "Eagles, Eagles," Brighton fans had the perfect reply: "Seagulls, Seagulls." So next time the away ends chanting their crazy nickname, you'll now know exactly where it came from.
So how about this? The NFL returns to Wembley in October as the LA Rams take on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and our competition to win VIP tickets is now open. That's right, we're giving you the chance to win 6 seats in a private box at Wembley with full hospitality and $5,000 spending money. Here's how you do it. You've got to be 18 and over, UK excluding Northern Ireland, for a chance to win. Text the word CASH to 83338 and you're in the draw. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission, or you can enter for free by calling 0330 880 338. All entries must be received by the 25th of August at 11 in the evening. It's a talkSPORT limited promotion run on talkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com. Quite a prize, that, isn't it? It's Jim White and Simon Jordan. We're live on talkSPORT, courtesy of Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go. So the news has really caused a storm this morning. Alexander Isak reportedly adamant he will not play for Newcastle again. So is there a latest, one wonders, on this saga? Are Liverpool in again? Have they upped their initial bid, their only bid, of 110 million? Is there any movement on it? Alex Crook, talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, joined Simon and myself live. Alex, good morning. Where are you at with this? Where are we all at with this?
Good morning. Well, I think I'm probably in the same place as Newcastle fans this morning, a little bit frazzled by the whole Alexander Isak situation. This has been rumbling on for the best part of a month now, since he didn't attend the pre-season tour to the Middle East, since he decided not to use Newcastle's training facilities when he was injured and instead went over to his former club Real Sociedad and used their facilities. And now, as David Ornstein at The Athletic reported, usually so on the pulse with such matters, he's told Newcastle he has no intentions to reintegrate and play for the club again. Now, obviously, that stance would change, I think, if we get to September the 1st and he is still a Newcastle player. But I think this is really the last great power play in what has become the biggest poker match in the Premier League this summer for Isak to try and force his move. And I slightly disagree with Simon. I think this does almost make his position untenable with the Newcastle fans, with teammates in that dressing room as well. And certainly, as I spoke to you guys about yesterday, with Eddie Howe, who to me looks thoroughly peeved off with the whole situation.
Yeah, Alex is entitled to his opinion. I mean, I think players care about themselves. I don't think dressing rooms get lost over players' behaviour because players are more motivated about the individual concerns they have for themselves. Newcastle are not a willing seller. So the onus lies really with Liverpool, has always lied with Liverpool. If Liverpool want to buy this player, then it's Liverpool's job to make the running, not Newcastle's.
Yeah.
The challenge for me is in all of this, there's a lot of supposition going on. No one's ever heard Newcastle turn around and say they want £150 million. No one's ever heard that. That's a suggestion as to what they want. They might be prepared to do less. They might be prepared to do more. Who knows? But the terms of reference for me are Newcastle's position should be very clear. We don't want to sell this player. We will sell this player. And I don't mean supposition. I mean public domain stuff. I mean clear lines of communication that are transparent, that are not opaque, that everyone understands where they are. So it's not being debated in the public domain in a certain way in the market square where people are putting their 2 pennies in. We don't want to sell this player. If we sell this player, if Liverpool want to buy this player, the offer, we'll accept offers of £150 million with no delayed payments. Very simple. Over to you, Liverpool. Yep. Over to you, player.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, yes, Simon, but you and I know how it works. You don't get public statements like this. You don't get Tom Werner or someone at Liverpool come out and say, here's our stance on that. We want 150 million. We will bid 150 million. Whatever.
Okay. Well, then you get situations like this, don't you? Because at bigger football clubs, it's very clear where people stand. It's very clear what happens to players in certain situations. And to have allowed Newcastle to have allowed this to have developed into the fact that the player thinks he can train with Sociedad, whether it was his idea or whether the club introduced it, I don't know. Whether the player thinks that he can back channel through the media to be able to create pressure on the circumstances. I genuinely believe that if you lack leadership and leadership doesn't stand to the front of the equation, then the vacuum gets filled by other people, like the media, like an agent, like aspects of a player utilising certain mouthpieces in the media to be able to impart the wisdom that they wish to impart. And if you've got strong leadership, it doesn't happen.
Where are Newcastle going at the moment, Alex? Are we talking, as has been reported, Nicholas Jackson?
Well, I think those conversations have been ongoing for a couple of weeks now between Chelsea and Newcastle and Nicholas Jackson's advisors. I think he's actively been touted around, actually, by his agent because he realises that he's gone from the main man in attack at Chelsea probably to third choice behind João Pedro and Liam Delap. I reported a couple of weeks ago that Chelsea have looked at the market. They've looked at what certain players have been sold for, the likes of Cunha and Mbumo, and they're looking at between 70 and 80 million pounds for Nicholas Jackson. I don't see Newcastle paying that, but talks will continue to try and drive that price down. I think there is a bit of interest there. Samu, forward at Porto, who nearly joined Chelsea actually a couple of windows ago, is another potential option. And I have been told they've made inquiries around Strand Larsen at Wolves, but I wouldn't necessarily see him as a direct replacement for Isak. I think in order to enable Isak to make this move to Liverpool, and at the moment Liverpool are keeping their own counsel, they're waiting in the wings for Newcastle to get their ducks in a row. I maintain they need two forwards because they've already lost Callum Wilson. Johan Wissa we expected to develop this week. He would be a Wilson replacement. And then they need to get a Samu, an Ollie Watkins potentially, or a Nicholas Jackson.
But that's a silly narrative. They didn't lose Callum Wilson. They let him go. They can go and buy the Brentford boy.
Yeah, but they're a striker down, Simon.
Sure, but they didn't lose him. They didn't misplace him. They're in control of their own destiny. They can go and buy the Brentford striker if they offer proper money for him. The circumstances with the Šeško transfer, he didn't want to go to Man United. They didn't lose him either. Man United took him. So the reality of Newcastle's situation is isolation. You isolate Isak, you make a decision going forward because notwithstanding it, you're still going to need strikers anyway. So they can get the Wissa deal done anytime they want, Newcastle. Anytime they want. They're not short of a bob or two. They're not going to challenge with PSR. They can buy Wissa, get him across the line. Callum Wilson, they decided, we don't want you anymore. You're not reliable enough and fit enough for us, so we're going to let you go out the door, and you've gone on a pay-and-play deal with West Ham. The only challenge that Newcastle have got this moment in time is the issue around Isak. The other things they can fix themselves.
Okay. He's on one this morning, Alex, but go with it.
Well, they did offer Callum Wilson a similar deal, I understand, to what he signed at West Ham, but I think he just felt a change of scenery was needed and maybe get more game time at West Ham all the time Isak was staying. But the fact of the matter is they are short-handed. Here we are. True. They play on Saturday.
But they can change that, can't they, if they want to?
Yeah, but their best player doesn't want to play for him. His backup option has left the club. At the moment, they've only got young Willis Sula, even
but they can sign the boy, like I just said, they can sign the boy from Brentford. They're not going to Brentford are not going to sell him for 25 million quid. They know he's not going to sell them for 25 million quid. So they're doing to Brentford what Liverpool appear to be doing to them, which is not paying what Brentford want for the player.
I know where Alan McCoyster's gone, Alex. He's heading out to Italy. The UEFA Super Cup final tomorrow night. Paris Saint-Germain against Tottenham. And Tottenham looking at Eberechi Eze at Palace. Am I right?
They are, and the fascinating development here is that we were under the impression that his £68 million release clause expired 2 weeks before the start of the season. I've had confirmation from sources close to Palace this morning. Actually, that doesn't expire until Friday, when, of course, the Premier League season kicks off. We've got Bournemouth-Liverpool live on talkSPORT. So they've got a bit of time, Tottenham, if they want to pay the full £68 million. Our information is they'd rather get him for a bit cheaper. Again, I'm sure Simon will say just pay the asking price, but they value him at 55 to £60 million. Arsenal have sort of kept Eze hanging all summer. I think the issue they've got is, like Tottenham, they see Eze as a number 10. They've already got Martin Odegaard. Kai Havertz, if he's not going to play up front because of Gyökeres, is a number 10. And they've promised Nwaneri minutes in that position as well. He can play on the left, but they've still got Martinelli and Trossard, Arsenal. So I think Tottenham could well be in the box seat here. And their need is greater, isn't it? Because they've lost James Maddison. They've not signed Morgan Gibbs-White. It's been a quiet summer so far. But Tottenham fans shouldn't take that, I'm told, as a lack of ambition for Daniel Levy. They've got funds to spend if the right deals become available, and this Eze deal could well be one of those.
OK, let's finish with Donnarumma. Is he on the way to the Premier League? Of course, PSG goalkeeper.
Well, you mentioned the Super Cup, Jim. He's been left out of the PSG squad for the Super Cup. That obviously hasn't gone down well at all. We're expecting some kind of statement from Donnarumma. It looks pretty clear that his days in Paris are numbered. He wants to come to the Premier League, and maybe Manchester United might just seize an opportunity here, because I think Ruben Amorim knows that he needs to upgrade his goalkeeper. Andre Onana has had, well, hazardous couple of years, really. And if they can get a goalkeeper of the calibre of Donnarumma, maybe for a relatively modest fee, I think this is a deal that Manchester United could well explore. I think it would be a game changer. I think you look at what they've done already this summer. They've completely revamped in attack. Yeah. They're looking to bring in a defensive midfielder. Although, can I just shoot down suggestions that Carlos Baleba is only earning 12 grand a week at Brighton and therefore wants to move? That's absolute nonsense that he's only on 12 grand a week. You're talking championship wages there. So far, no bid for Baleba. But Donnarumma in United, I think, definitely one to keep an eye on.
Great stuff, Alex. If you're watching Alex live on YouTube, incidentally, this morning, it looks as if he's broadcasting live from Aintree Racecourse, as if he's behind one of the fences. That's not Beecher's Brook behind you, is it, mate?
It's my back garden, Jim. It is sweltering on the south coast today. Too hot to work inside.
Get in the sea. That's what you normally do in a situation like that. PSG against Spurs tomorrow night. UEFA Super Cup final from the Blue Energy Stadium is live on talkSPORT. We're live on talkSPORT, courtesy of Selco, where the trade goes. Jim White and Simon Jordan, the new Premier League season very much upon us. Manchester United, are they still an unknown quantity? Rio Ferdinand will give us his take on that and a whole lot more later on this morning. In the meantime, we want to concentrate on matters over in Spain. Villarreal against Barcelona. Of course, I think of Marcus Rashford now when I think of Barcelona, and Yamin Lamal and the rest. That's to be played in December. But it's all set to become the first European League fixture to be played abroad, specifically in Miami, Florida. It comes after the Spanish Football Federation yesterday approved the plans to host the game in America. They'll now seek permission from FIFA and UEFA to move the game officially to the United States. I wonder how that has gone down in Spain. This fella is just the boy to tell us. Spanish football expert Graham Hunter joins us live. Graham, good morning to you. Always good to speak to you. How has it gone down in Spain?
James, because this is about the fifth attempt to get a La Liga game staged in the United States, the coverage in this morning's media is actually quite reduced. There have been voices against it, obviously, from fans particularly who are hardliners, not just fans of Villarreal and Barcelona, but who are saying this will adulterate the competition. Why is it necessary? What will the after effects be? And will this be the thin end of the wedge? There's been a more important voice of concern, which is a man called David Aganso, who is both on the board of the Spanish FA. It was their decision you were referring to, and they gave a tick to this. But he's also the leader of the players' union, and he's saying something that shouldn't surprise anybody. Well, the players and the captains, my representatives, haven't been consulted at all. There hasn't been an information dissemination about this, so they've probably put the cart before the horse. But I'd advise both of you to get your suntan lotions and your passports and your visas in order and get over to Miami, because there's a distinct possibility now that this will happen.
Graham, before Simon comes in it, why is La Liga so keen to make this happen?
There's been a constant attempt since Javier Tebas took over La Liga to try and first catch up with and then secondly outstrip the Premier League in terms of its reputation overseas, but also its impact and its branding and how much it earns. There's a vast disparity at the moment between what La Liga can earn around the globe and what the Premier League does earn. And there's a concept, I'm not defending it, but La Liga are believing that if they play this match in the United States, just as NFL takes show games around the continent, and this year, apart from what they've already done in London, they're going to be playing games in Dublin and in Germany and in Madrid. There's a concept from La Liga, well, if it's good for NFL, it must be good for us. I don't think that obviously necessarily follows as a given. There'll be some financial perspective available for the two clubs in being the guinea pigs in this, but La Liga, and folks, don't forget that $1.4 billion is what ESPN, owned by Disney, based in the United States, it's what ESPN paid to have 8 years of live La Liga coverage. So La Liga are thinking there is a gold, so many sports think there's a gold mine in North America, and we can be amongst the pioneers in getting profit from it. Whether that works or not, and whether it's the right thing or not, I expect Simon to tell us.
And I think Graham's summation of it exactly is spot on. The reasons why it's taken so long to achieve is because FIFA's regulations were overturned by relevant sports in the US. Charlie Stinantano and the owner of the Miami Dolphins owns a sport agency that really wanted to have domestic European football played in the US. I'm not so sure the MLS are that keen on it. I'm not so sure that US soccer are that keen on it, because it doesn't actually enhance their product. It actually detracts from their product, because it shows their product to be as substandard as it is. But the reality of it is that the broadcasters and the football clubs in other leagues are looking at it and seeing it as an opportunity in the way that Graham has described it. There is a massive disparity, an unbridgeable disparity between what the Premier League is currently achieving, what La Liga is achieving, what Bundesliga is achieving, and what Serie A is achieving. So to be able to take it out and to take it into a place like North America and create opportunities is exactly what Javier Tebas is doing.
So basically what you're telling me this morning is, Spain maybe have a need to do this. The Premier League here in England doesn't.
Well, the Premier League won't sit on its laurels. I don't believe that there'll be a Premier League game in real time in any time soon. I believe there'll be a meaningful fixture played in America, and I have no issue with that. I have an issue with the Premier League game being played there because I think it goes against the sporting integrity of the sport, in the same way that it goes against the sporting integrity of the sport and the construct of it in Spain, because the home and away fixtures formulate the thinking behind how a league is put together. But I understand implicitly, Javier Tebas is a strange little bag of contradictions, because he wanted a Premier League job himself, spends his entire time, because he didn't get it, dumping all over the Premier League, accusing the Premier League football clubs of breaking the transfer system, when it's the clubs in Spain that are responsible for the biggest and most profligate transfer fees. So there's an element of hypocrisy, but they are chasing it because they have accepted now, as a matter of course, that the powerhouse that the financial juggernaut of the Premier League is, and its overseas domination now, it's not just the domestic rights that the Premier League is smashing the granny out of everybody, it's their overseas grab as well. The broadcast rights going around the world, they're getting as much money as they were getting domestically from overseas rights now.
Yeah.
So leagues like La Liga can sit there and allow it to happen, or they can take advantage of taking the momentum and believing that it'll achieve an outcome that gives them the commercial revenue around the world that they currently lack.
Graham, tell me about the integrity issue here that faces La Liga. I mean, home advantage for Villarreal in this instance goes out the window.
Listen, Jim, Simon, I think listeners too, you don't have me on simply because I'm in Spain and I know about Spanish football. It's about honesty. I would say I don't know. I don't think anybody genuinely knows. So, for example, Barcelona consistently go down to the Madrigal and Villarreal and win. So, are Villarreal definitely handing over something that's absolutely vital by playing this game in Miami? Truthfully, I don't know that for sure. Will it be a stimulus for them to play without Barcelona fans in a renewed Camp Nou? Will it be an opportunity for Marcelino to plan the travel better? Because again, the thing that we're not really talking about is the footballers. I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't say that I'm sceptical and worried about this, because we ask too much of our footballers. We ask them to play too often when they're jet lagged. They haven't been consulted about this. And one of the things that I would argue, throw back to you both, is how does anybody measure the success of this? The rights are sold in the United States for up until 2029. Maybe the tour matches the following summer are better attended. Charlie Stilitano is part of this, as Simon said, and he is part of the promotion that has brought both Premier League and Spanish clubs over to the United States in the summer over and over again. It's a World Cup year. How does that alter everybody's thinking? Jim, I'd be a liar if I said I know all the answers to this, but I will tell you this for absolute certain. We live in an era where experimenting at the cost of what the players or the fans thinks, it's never been less relevant to football authorities, in my opinion. And it will be about, if people can prove that there's a dollar in this, then Simon's point about the Premier League not sitting on its laurels will be tested. Because if this is a success and can be proven as such, everybody will want a piece of it.
I think Graham's right, isn't it?
Well, they're not
financially, if this does it,
well, they're not going to allow.
Then it's a thing of the future.
They're not going to sit back and allow Liga to level the playing field, are they? I mean, in the same way that La Liga and Serie A have allowed, for a variety of different reasons. When I was over in Italy talking to the former owner of Juventus, I said to him, how have you let the Premier League get in that situation? And they blame it on technology. And how you measure success like this is you measure the observations of football clubs and how they base their footprint. Like Man United will have you believe they've got more fans than the Pope. Than practicing Catholics around the world. Apparently 5 million people are Man United fans. Digital impressions create footprints. Why do you think Ryan Reynolds and the other fellow at Wrexham are able to monetize Wrexham the way they are? Because the recognisability of their particular brand.
Yeah.
And the big disadvantage for teams like Girona that were going to play was that the Barcelona brand translates. When they go to Miami, they'll have a full stadium of people that recognise Barcelona, know Messi played for them, and will be supporting Barcelona when teams like Villarreal go there.
On Barcelona, Graham, before you leave us, am I right? Have Lamine and Marcus become new best pals?
They're brilliant playing partners. Marcus Rashford in the friendly against Cesc Fabregas's Como did some things that looked exceptional, as good as anything we've seen from him since his very best days for England or his debut couple of seasons for Manchester United. Yes, they click. Yes, they get on well. But let's just face the facts. Marcus isn't registered yet, nor is Chesney, nor is Juan Garcia. The new signings that Barcelona have made, they haven't yet convinced La Liga that their financial report card is good enough. And as we speak, with the matches kicking off for Barcelona in Mallorca on Saturday night, none of the new signings for Barcelona are yet registered. I think they will be, but that applies to Marcus. He's in good nick. He played really well against Como on Sunday night, but none of these new players are registered yet, Jim. It's an odd place over here.
Brilliant. Graham Hunter, as always, thank you so much for your contribution. On this
Don't
game.
worry about Rashford. He'll play well this season when he gets an opportunity. he will play well for Barcelona in the opportunities
in a World Cup year.
Oh, absolutely,
of course. Simon, with this game in mind of Villarreal Barcelona, are you concerned? I know you're concerned. You don't want to see a Premier League game go overseas, but it's bound to.
I don't think a Premier League game will go overseas. I think they will create a fixture of some shape or form that actually means it's a meaningful game, not a pre-season exhibition tour, but something that has some domestic jeopardy in it, something that's portable from the English framework into the American framework, which doesn't compromise the integrity of the competition that they're in. Now, I don't know what that looks like. It's not beyond the wit of man to create it, but I would be surprised if in the next half a decade that there is a Premier League game played there. I'm not suggesting I would rule it out, because if it's a rip-roaring success, they're not going to allow. But there's no necessarily indication it's going to be. You've just seen the MLS.
It would be a huge financial success.
Well, but you've heard Graham Hunter turn around and say, "What's the measurement? What's the measurement? The measurement can't be attendances, because you get 50, 60,000 fans in the game. It's going to generate you £6 million. That's not the answer, is it? They're not looking for £6 million. They're looking for hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds or dollars to be able to supplement the revenue that they've got in the various leagues that aren't competing with the Premier League. So now you tell me the broadcast deal, Apple paid $2.5 billion for 10 years for the MLS. Tell me how much are the NBCs of the world, or whoever it is that's got the American rights for the Premier League? How much are they paying? $300 or $400 million? We're not talking about huge money here. We're talking about brand recognition and opportunities for the leagues that cannot compete with the Premier League.
Okay, well, remember the date. It's in December. Miami is the venue. Villarreal, Barcelona. And all it needs now is to be rubber stamped by FIFA and UEFA. We are heading to 11 o'clock live on talkSPORT this Tuesday morning.
As Lewis Hamilton, now at Ferrari, dares to dream of a record 8th F1 world title, the Tifosi will be hoping the Brits can bring glory back to Italy. To many, Ferrari and Formula One are inseparable. They're the only team in the sport today to have competed in the first World Championship in 1950, are the most successful team in history, and have built some absolutely gorgeous cars. Their first driver's title was won in 1952 by Alberto Ascari. Considered one of F1's most dominant and best-loved champions, he drove the iconic Ferrari 500 and defended his title the year after. It was Juan Manuel Fangio in his Ferrari 250 who secured the team's next driver's title in 1956. Remember, he was world champion 5 times with 4 different teams. Mike Hawthorne, Phil Hill and John Surtees also won titles for Ferrari in the 50s and 60s, and the cars back then were beautiful, and they even sounded great, didn't they? Anyway, Ferrari went 11 years without winning a title until Niki Lauda won in 1975 in the iconic 312T. Throughout much of the 80s and 90s, though, Ferrari looked like they'd never go all the way again. Le Professeur Alain Prost came pretty close in 1990, but lost out to his bitter rival and former teammate at McLaren, Ayrton Senna. It was only when John Todt recruited a swathe of staff from outside of Italy, including Michael Schumacher, that the glory days returned 21 years after their last driver's title. The turn of the century saw the prancing horse sprint to an unprecedented 5 consecutive championship doubles. And after Schumacher left, Kimi Raikkonen reclaimed the driver's title immediately. But despite employing 1,500 people, the Iceman remains the last Ferrari world champion. So, 16 constructors' titles, 7 more than McLaren, and 15 drivers' titles, 4 more than, again, McLaren. Ferrari are truly Formula One's top team. Forza Ferrari.
Good morning, everybody. This is Tuesday, August the 12th, and it's just the back of 11 o'clock in the morning. It's Jim White and Simon Jordan, and we are live on talkSPORT, coming to you from this brand new studio here on the 17th floor, yes, 17th floor of the News Building here at London Bridge, and it looks quite fantastic. If you're watching on YouTube and your smart TV, I think you'd agree with me. Even we look good. For all the information on how to watch the show, just head to talksport.com/watch. Mr. Jordan is with me. This must be about your 390th consecutive day of broadcasting live on talkSPORT. But we are the beneficiaries of that. Simon with me all the way through until 1 o'clock. Just on the Isak thing, please know that while we are talking about other subjects, when there's a story developing, a breaking story that's developing behind the scenes, a whole bunch of people here at talkSPORT are working on it. Anything we hear, you will hear fast and first right here on talkSPORT. Simon, here's a question. I'll put some more meat in the bones in just a second to this. But how aware, how aligned, how concerned should a club be with a player's own social media platform? I want to describe the build-up to this to you in some detail. This comes as Mo Salah replied to UEFA's tribute online to a player who was known as the Palestinian Pele. The Palestine Football Association said that a young lad by the name of Suleiman Al Obeid actually was 41 years of age. But Suleiman Al Obeid was killed by an Israeli strike last week whilst waiting for humanitarian aid in the Gaza Strip. UEFA posted a social media tribute saying, "Farewell to Suleiman Al Obeid, the Palestinian Pele, a talent who gave hope to countless children, even in the darkest of times." Now, that was one thing, but it prompted Mo Salah, Liverpool's Mo Salah, of course, to share the post with a comment from Mo. Can you tell us how he died, where, and why? Now, that was brought to the attention of the former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn online, as well as former Match of the Day presenter Gary Lineker, who shared Salah's message before adding himself, "We can't hear you, UEFA." Simon, where should we stand on this? Where do you stand on it? As a club, and in this instance Liverpool, should you separate the club's social media brand from the player's social media brand? Should they align themselves with what Salah is saying?
Well, it depends what world you live in. If you live in an Orwellian world where you have the Ministry of Truth, which defines what you do and don't say and what you do and don't think. What position do we think that football clubs have on then world events? What position do we think they should have? Because I personally don't think a football club should have any position on anything other than football. And whilst other people will disagree and want to leverage football clubs for all kinds of different opportunities to create different kinds of campaigns and different kinds of messaging, I think the central message that a football club should be about entertainment and about football. It doesn't mean I don't understand the value of it. It doesn't mean I don't understand the principle of community assets that can leverage and be more powerful than simply being about football. But that's because people want to make it that way. So if I were having a footballer that played for me, of course footballers are signed to employment contracts, and employment contracts come with certain stipulations. If I didn't like a player's position, then I have the choice not to sign him. But my position as a football club, I don't ask footballers, and I don't think footballers should be asked, to be subject to groupthink. They're individuals. If they compromise the integrity of the football club on football-related matters, then I'd have an issue with it.
Right.
But if they are flying in the face of what the football club believes, and by the way, who cares what the football club believes? Who cares what Liverpool think of the issue in Gaza, with due respect to Liverpool Football Club? That's not Liverpool Football Club's position. And if we want to have it leveraged because that's what people choose to do, I don't understand what it's got to do with UEFA. I don't understand why Gary Lineker would be indexing it to UEFA or anything. We see these football organisations get themselves tied up in knots because they want to get involved in things that they're not equipped to get involved in. And when it gets hot in the kitchen, they don't like it. So they want to do a little dance, which is the populist dance, like all politicians want to do, and all people that want to leverage it. When they like something, they'll index themselves to it. When it's a particular cause, when we have to come down on the side of a particular cause, whether it's an LGBT issue, whether it's about racism, I understand these are meaningful causes. But when it comes about an issue, when you're lighting up Wembley Stadium for the Ukrainian flag because everybody is in favour of supporting Ukraine, and then when you don't want to do that over the Palestinian-Israel conflict, all of a sudden you're in a situation where there's jeopardy and you don't do something you've done somewhere else. So the best thing that football can do is keep itself aligned with the core principles of what its main function in life to be is entertainment and sports. Now, I understand that the idea that geopolitics and sport are becoming closer bedfellows and people are making decisions about how they influence their own nation's destiny by buying sports clubs is probably something for the birds in terms of my thinking about keeping sport, politics and agendas out of the equation. But I'm not going to encourage it.
I see where you're going with it. But at the same time, clubs do act on occasions when they see something on social media that one of their players has posted. It takes me back to December 2019. You'll remember this. Former Arsenal player Mesut Ozil commented on the treatment of Uyghur Muslims in China. Now, Arsenal got involved and they distanced themselves from the comments, saying at the time they were apolitical as an organisation.
So, but why did they do that? Let's pare that back honestly, because they were trying to do deals with Chinese businesses, and they didn't want one of their players going out and bad-mouthing China and its regime because ultimately it would hurt their commercial deals.
But did Arsenal need to get themselves involved publicly?
Well, no, because probably didn't realise the hypocrisy of their position. It lacked any real genuity. They were actually doing it from a commercial standpoint. Yeah. So in that instance, Arsenal could be saying, we're doing commercial deals, you're compromising them by having an opinion. Now, there's something that you can look at that and go, well, that's a bit concerning. That's a bit dystopian, because ultimately players, within reason, should be allowed to have an opinion on world events. They should be allowed to have an opinion. It shouldn't influence the ability of a commercial organisation. But by the same token, players are images that are directly associated with the football club. They're directly leveraged for all kinds of things, predominantly commercial, because no one's really interested in Mesut Ozil's opinion about what's happening to the Uyghur Muslims. They're interested in whether Ozil can kick a football and run around and be a role model to young kids that are going to buy sports kits.
I mean, if you were still at the top of Palace, Simon, and you're about to sign a player, and you hear later on that this player is pretty busy and active on social media, and this is his stance, and it's a stance that you think, that might get tricky, would you pull out signing him?
I think you have to think about it. It depends, but that's like writing a blank check. It depends on the subject matter.
Well, the reason I ask,
if he has a belief system that people should be able to have sex with children under 16 years of age, then I'm not going to want that to be.
Sure,
a part
you
of
might
my
pull the brakes on that one. But Bundesliga club, actually the Bundesliga 2, if I remember rightly, they went down, didn't they? Fortuna Düsseldorf. They pulled out of a deal to sign an Israeli forward, Sean Weissman.
And that's their right.
Due to his social media comments on the Israel-Gaza war. And the club said, no, what he's saying isn't compatible with what our values are.
And that's their
And
prerogative.
they didn't sign the boy.
And that's their prerogative. So that was one way of avoiding the issue that we're talking about now. I mean, I might be ambitious.
So they can't really be separated, can they?
Well, they can if you choose to, because this
And Fortuna Düsseldorf chose to.
They chose not to. They chose not to participate in having a player that has an opinion that they don't particularly concur with, because apparently the brand values of Fortuna Düsseldorf are so important around the world that a player having a different opinion than a homogenous group of people that support that football club, which I imagine they're not homogenous. I imagine people have different views. I don't imagine that the ownership of Fortuna Düsseldorf speaks for every single Fortuna Düsseldorf fan.
Sure.
So the idea that they can superimpose that value set over what everyone else thinks is a bit disconcerting, because we do live in a world where we do actually want to subscribe to the view that there is a freedom of speech mentality, albeit that it comes with consequences, which means sometimes there isn't a freedom of speech, there's a freedom of speech with a consequence. But I think football clubs and the football fraternity get a bit carried away with their own importance and what they think that their messaging imparts. I don't look at any football club around the world and think that their stance on anything other than football has any particular meaning to me. Now, that might be me being a bit Machiavellian, or it might be being a bit naive, but I don't see the brand values of a football club influencing whether I believe that the Palestinians have a right to a certain set of outcomes or the Israelis do. And a football club's opinion on it has no relevance to me whatsoever.
But one of your players' opinion on it in social media, how would you have coped with that? If he was a valuable member of your playing staff and he's on social media actively and regularly tweeting about a world event or about a war situation.
Again, it's the balancing act between having people that can think for themselves, having a footballer that can think for himself, the courage of his convictions, characters, some beliefs, some standards, actually has its own benefit. Because too many people in this world are vanilla, too many people in this world are cowardly and don't say what they mean, and too many people don't have any values besides what they value for themselves. So I think there's some value in it. And if the only value we attach to something is that it might offend somebody somewhere, well, you're going I dare to say that Jack Grealish might not be a success at Everton. So if you worry about what you're going to say and what you believe and what you're going to do, you'll never do anything.
You got hard time in social media, yes.
Everyone, isn't it? It's wonderful, isn't it, football fans? If you say something nice about your football club, they love you. If you say something that's not nice, they hate you and they want to see you executed.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that we live in a world where opinions are part and parcel of a staple diet. Some opinions are worth more than others. And whether we believe... I mean, I don't know. Obviously, you see footballers now, they've got more followers than religious leaders. There's more people that follow Ronaldo than do the Pope. But do they follow Ronaldo because they're interested in his opinion or because he can do the Sue and scores 1,000 goals?
Yeah, probably both.
I don't think it's his opinion. I've not really heard him voice one. Besides, I was treated badly at Man United by some invisible president I never met.
Okay.
According to his mate Piers Morgan, who was his PR at the time.
Well, Simon gets a bit of heavy treatment on social media, which he thoroughly deserves. We shall move on. It's 11:15 this Tuesday morning. We're live in talkSPORT. The NFL returns to Wembley in October. The Los Angeles Rams take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And our competition to win VIP tickets is now open. We're giving you the chance to win 6 seats in a private box at Wembley with full hospitality and $5,000 spending money. What do you spend when you're in the box? $5,000. But anyway, here's how to enter. You've got to be 18 and over. UK excluding Northern Ireland for a chance to win this thing. Text the word cash to 83338 and then you're in the draw. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Must have the bill payer's permission, or you can enter for free by calling 0330 880 33338. All entries must be received by the 25th of August at 11 at night. It's a talkSPORT limited promotion run on talkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com. How lovely. We shall see who comes out and wins that. It's a hell of a prize, is it not? Pretty good. A box at Wembley. You're in there for 6 and you can watch the Jaguars against the Rams and you've got $5,000 in your pocket. Sounds good to me.
I need $5,000 to go and watch NFL football.
Would you? You need somebody to pay you
couldn't pay me $5,000 to go and watch it.
I've been a few of them, a few of the matches in the games in the US, and they are pretty entertaining.
Yeah, they're spectacle. The whole,
you get a running commentary as to what is going on as well. They educate you.
The fact that it's an event from the moment you get there. You can have cookouts in the bloody car lots, and you can do what you want. I've been there and seen it, but the actual game itself,
I know,
doesn't interest me.
You wouldn't like the cookout in the car park either, would you? Because you don't like socialising with anyone.
I don't like socialising. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, the boot up of the Range Rover. It's not for you.
Not for me.
You wouldn't hover about there offering...
I'd have an Escalade, though, if I was in America. I wouldn't have a Range Rover.
You'd have a what?
An Escalade.
An Escalade?
Yeah.
Okay, that's lovely.
He doesn't know what that is, does he?
Not a clue, but you're welcome to have
big
one.
Car.
I was surprised when you didn't watch the tennis yesterday.
No.
It was a good effort by Emma Raducanu. She took on the number one, Sabalenka, over in Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Open, and she made a real game of it. Sabalenka eventually won 7-6, 4-6, 7-6. So that in itself shows that Emma was in the game for a considerable period of time. But then there was one point during the game, during the match, Raducanu called for something to be done about a little toddler in the crowd. Somebody brought a little one into the tennis match, and it brought the umpire into question. And this was the moment that Raducanu's concentration, if you like, was disrupted by this tiny kid in the court.
It's a child. Do you want me to send the child out of the stadium? I can call in, but we need to continue for the moment.
And Emma had to play on. Now, this little child cried out, or was crying momentarily.
Yeah.
And
repeatedly, though, wasn't it?
I think it wasn't the first time it happened. Yeah, you're right. You heard the umpire say there, well, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to chuck the child out? And quite a number of the spectators were like, yeah, do it. Yeah. I mean, is it an overreaction on Emma's part? Where'd you draw the line? I mean, should a little child be in there?
I don't think it's very helpful for an umpire to have responded that way. I mean, the umpire then qualifies it by, I can call in. The umpire was trying to maintain some sort of popularity with the audience because ultimately tennis players are distracted. If a tennis player is in the middle of serving and someone shouts out, they'll be the first person to be reprimanded.
Yeah, of course.
Told the audience has got to be quiet and people have got to be mindful of the fact that a tennis player is concentrating.
But you can't make a tennis match or a sporting event child-free,
Well, you can make it appropriate. I mean, you go to the theatre.
What does that mean, appropriate?
Well, age appropriate. If they've got a baby inside an auditorium, it's not I don't think it's particularly, responsible parenting, and B, it's not reflective of the environment that a child should probably be in. And so, C, you've then got the distraction that tennis players or anybody playing an individual sport that requires a degree of concentration is going to be affected by. So it's not me sitting there being some horrid, Wackford Squires from a Charles Dickens book. It's me looking at it going, it's ridiculous. I wouldn't bring a young child. Theatres don't allow people to bring young children into auditoriums when actors are in the middle of acting, so a kid can scream out, spit his dummy across the room. The fact of the matter is, it's not appropriate. It's not mean-spirited. I'm not suggesting everyone should be put into an orphanage. I'm simply saying that that's not appropriate. What kind of parent?
So you're saying that's not the place for a young child?
Not a baby.
You can take a baby on a plane.
Well, that's because they're travelling somewhere, and everyone understands that. And I don't suppose the pilot would want the baby in the cockpit, would he?
maybe the father or the mother couldn't get a babysitter, and one of them took the baby to the tennis match.
And that's fine. We accept that.
You're saying you're not having the baby. Would you say at the entrance? Sorry, you can't come in with the baby. Sorry about that.
I would suggest that surely to God, there must be some degree of requirement for an age limit to be in place. And that ultimately the parents who seem unable to make the most reasonable choice wouldn't be in a position to be able to make any choice. You can't bring a baby into a live sporting event. I think it's ridiculous. Any live sporting event? Bring it to snooker then. Let's have a screaming kid in snooker. So when we've got a leading snooker player, Judd Trump, leading down to make. Wah!
Oh God, I heard that.
Right, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
Is it acceptable for certain sports?
No. Well,
football.
Well, like what then? Boxing. Bring them to boxing so they can watch Blood and Thunder. Let's get them to the bare knuckle fighting so they can get involved with that too.
When a goal is scored in the Premier League, Championship, or whatever, even up in Scotland, and there's a cutaway of the crowd, and you see a father with his young kid, and they're jumping about and they're loving the moment.
There's an age, of course. If you're talking about 7.
So what's your cut-off point?
Not babies,
Mr. Charles Dickens.
No, not particularly. I'm not being mean-spirited. Listen, you can do whatever you want in this world. You can steer a car with your feet if you want to. It doesn't make it a good idea, does it? Right? And bringing kids to a live sporting event. Whatever, if it's football, you've got tribalism, you've got all the manner of experiences that a young kid. I wouldn't take my 5-year-old son to a football match at this moment in time. His mum might disagree with that, but I don't think it's the right place for him at this moment in time. He'll go there.
Would he want to go anywhere with you?
Well, if it was Hull City, watching Hull City, I should hope he wouldn't. No, if it was with Crystal Palace, and most certainly I would imagine he would.
It's a bit snooty, though, isn't it?
No, it's not.
This is a child-free zone. I'm sorry.
No, it's not.
Raducanu is playing Sabalenka, and you can't come in.
It's not a child-free zone. It's an age-appropriate environment. That's not the same thing. Suggesting that you can't bring a baby into an environment which is clearly not appropriate for a child to be in, clearly not the right environment, and there should be age restrictions upon it, not because people are being mean-spirited, because it's just practical thinking and responsible parenting. And I suggest the parents are moron.
You're not going to tell me that the umpire at Raducanu Sabalenka yesterday should have chucked the parent and the child out?
Well, I think the umpire is responsible for controlling the auditorium. So if someone was being
abusive, yes, then.
Okay, who would be responsible if someone was being abusive from the stands, or someone had too much to drink and was being
different?
Why is it different? Why is it different?
That's different.
Or the umpire is controlling the environment
because that is disruption.
And so is a baby screaming during the middle of a high-profile tennis match, and you know it is. You're just playing devil's advocate for the purpose of the conversation.
I'm not.
You are.
I don't think the child was screaming.
What was it doing then?
There was a noise, and the father and the mother was like, shh.
What was it, reciting some poetry? It was screaming in the background.
It was screaming. You're a dreadful person. You know that?
No,
dreadful. And I'd love to have seen it if you were up the steps umpiring that game. Where did that come from? Yeah, you.
Out.
Row 2. And the kid.
Absolutely.
Out.
Absolutely.
Out. Hold on, girls. Don't play. Out means out.
But I do.
You would have given it that.
I feel for everybody in the situation, because no one should be in that situation, because it's a moron parent that's brought a child in there that's not appropriate in that environment. It's created. The umpire's been put in an invidious position. The player is looking like a mean-spirited person that's complaining about being distracted when they're in the business of sport. This is a professional sports person.
Yeah.
That is in the business of sport, that's in a meaningful match playing against the world's number 1 and number 2 player, that cannot concentrate, not because they're being a prima donna or being up their own backside, because they're being distracted.
So tennis or snooker, as you mentioned, should be from an audience point of view, adult only.
Well, you know what I'm saying is sensible. No, I'm saying age appropriate.
Right.
And age appropriate doesn't mean bringing a child in there. What are you going to do? Let someone breastfeed in the front row? How would the broadcasters like that then?
I mean, tiny kids.
Sky would have a fit, wouldn't they? Oh, we're not showing that.
You know I'm
if they're an LGBT flag, we'll show it.
You know I'm quite a thespian these days. I mean, tiny children can go to the theatre. Just depends.
No, they can't.
Look, get onto the old Vic, will you?
I took my son to the theatre the other day, and there's a minimum age requirement of 5.
A minimum age requirement.
Correct.
What did you go and see at the theatre?
The vagina monologues. No, I went to see Back to the Future. Luke's going, what's that? It's a famous play, Luke. The vagina monologues is a famous play.
Yourself. Mr. Jordan is
no sex, please. We're British.
Because of he's on one today. He's having a record number of dumps. The dump button is well and truly in overdrive.
I've not lost control of my bowels.
No, you're not having a record number of dumps. So, as far as Simon is concerned, children of a tiny nature should never be anywhere near tennis matches.
I'm not suggesting vertical challenge children.
Snooker matches.
I'm not bringing dwarfism into it. I'm talking about age.
You've totally wrecked that. But anyway, we'll go with it for the time being. It's Jim White and it's Charles Dickens. We're live on talkSPORT.
Here are some of the best off-camera anecdotes from recent years at the Ryder Cup. As caddy Billy Foster went to relieve himself at the Belfry, he noticed only one of the 2 cubicles had toilet paper. Shortly after he'd sat down, Tiger Woods went into the empty cubicle and realised his mistake all too late. So Foster took some paper, reached under the cubicle with a rescue offering, and as Tiger went to take it, Foster uttered the words, "Europe, one up." Fast forward 10 years to the miraculous Medina. Rory McIlroy overslept and was in danger of missing his Sunday tea time. Thankfully, travel organiser Erica Stoll sorted him a police escort, and 3 years later, McIlroy proposed. Scottish legend Sam Torrance tells many a yarn about the great Ballesteros. Apparently, Seve would regularly give coaching clinics to his European teammates. When the same players asked for help a week later at the Italian Open, Seve would tell them to Having started with a Billy Foster story, let's finish with one from the 12th tee at Oakland Hills in 2004. It was Jimenez and Garcia against Westwood and Clark in a practice round, and as they finished, Foster decided to jump in the buggy and speed away with all their clubs, only to lose control entirely and see it careering towards the spectators. Thankfully, the Red Sea parted and the buggy smashed into a tree, with viewers and clubs still intact.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Get ready for the golden era of sports betting. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18+ gambleaware.org.
We're joined by Matt Gibson from BetMGM to look at today's top sporting events and discuss the latest odds around and about them. Matt, good morning to you. Rangers in action tonight, and they've got a 3-goal cushion. It's a Champions League qualifier, second leg, Victoria Pilsen, Czech Republic. So they're looking all right, aren't they? One would hope.
Yeah, they're the 1-16 to go through this evening, so pretty sure as they're taking a 3-0 lead over to the Czech Republic. They're not actually favourites to win the game. The 3-1 outsiders, the home team, 7-10, 16-5, the draw. Rangers have been all right in Europe this season, haven't they? The contrast in form to how they've been domestically. They were booed off at Dundee at the weekend. Who Sean Martin was telling me this morning, Dundee are the favourites to go down in the SPL, and Rangers couldn't manage a win against them. It appears that it's kind of the same old story as it was for Philippe Clement with Russell Martin. A little bit of lack of pace and lethargy domestically, but they seem to be able to get up for the big European ties. We fully expect them to go through tonight, taking one step closer to getting in the group stages. I think for the second time in about 15 years, they will play either Salzburg or Bruges if they're successful tonight. But there's certainly a few concerns domestically that they're going to have to address, as well as keeping this Champions League qualification form going.
Yeah, I mean, Simon, they overcame Panathinaikos. And now it's Victoria Pilsen, a 3-goal cushion. Yeah. You would think
the job is done. It's an interesting situation because Matt makes the point about the comparison. I would suspect that actually when you're playing against teams in Scotland, your Rangers and Celtic, it's those teams that raise their game that creates the problem rather than the European counterparts not necessarily doing it, because Rangers and Celtic are the big teams that you go to.
Yeah.
Is it? I mean, I thought this qualified them. If they win this, I thought this qualified them to the Champions League proper. Does it not?
I thought they face either Salzburg or Bruges next.
So they've got to go through. They've got to go through 3 sets of qualifications. They've got to go past the team that they beat in Panathinaikos. They've got to go past. They've overcome them. They've got to have 3 sets of qualifiers before they get into the Champions Group. Wow. Okay.
I mean, at the moment, they're looking good for this to go through tonight, but you never know. Let's look ahead to the return of the Premier League Sunday at 2, Chelsea Palace. What are you thinking in that one?
Yeah, we thought we'd talk a little bit about this one. It's interesting, isn't it? It's the Conference League and the World Champs against the FA Cup and the Community Shield Champs. So both teams had a pretty good year in terms of trophies. The year just gone, Chelsea, it appears like they've picked up where they left off from the Club World Cup. Again, talking to a Chelsea fan this morning, he went to watch them beat Bayern Leverkusen 2-0 and beat AC Milan 4-1 on Sunday. And obviously, Palace are coming off the high of beating Liverpool, but got a bit of a kick in the teeth yesterday with the European news. I was just texting a Palace friend of mine, Simon. I don't know if the sentiment's the same from where you're from. His immediate concern was keeping hold of the talent because they've gone down a stage in Europe. Eze is shorter to go to Arsenal and to go to Spurs than to stay at Palace. Gay is shorter to go to Liverpool than stay at Palace. And obviously we're a month down the line in terms of the transfers. So if those guys go out the door, you've only got 2 and a bit weeks to maybe replace them. But that was his immediate concern, is keeping hold of those players. And
he's going.
Effectively, there's a month wasted, isn't there? While the decision's been.
Well, I don't believe that the players would distinguish between playing in the Europa League and playing in the Europa Conference League that are currently there. Gay's going. He was going anyway. He signalled it last year. He wasn't going to sign a new contract. He's into his last year of his contract this year. He either goes because someone bids him, or Palace actively accept a situation which is far discounted from what they really want, because they otherwise are going to get nothing in a year's time, or they stay with him and accept they're going to get nothing but have a better season with him playing. Eze, well, that's up to the market forces to determine whether someone can pry him away from Palace. So I had the strange dynamic with Alex Cook this morning saying that a release clause evaporates in the middle of a transfer window, which seems to make no sense whatsoever, because why would you have a release clause that evaporates in the middle of a transfer window? It defeats the object of it. But if that is indeed true, then Palace will be a hostage of fortune. But every time Crystal Palace have to overcome the adversity of losing a major player, then they manage to do it. Wilfried Zaha can't win a game without Wilfried Zaha. Wilfried Zaha goes, they get stronger. Elise leaving, Anderson leaving. All of these players have gone, and Palace have gone on and been stronger. So, whilst
you think Gay will go?
Oh, I can't imagine why he wouldn't.
Right.
He's not going to sign a new contract unless they're going to get insulted with a silly lowball offer of 10 or 15 million quid. Palace, and Parish himself has said it, and I make him right for saying it.
Yeah.
They've got no choice. You let him go for nothing in a year's time, or you take what the market will offer now and accept the fact you're going to have to buy another centre-half in the same way that you bought Gehi in the same way you bought Anderson in, and replace people that were there previously. You'll go again.
Going again tonight are the teams in the EFL Cup. The first round tonight, Matt.
Yeah, there's no Prem teams in there just yet. And I think the draw split into a north and south section. We reckon that we've found a pretty solid fourfold. There's 4 championship teams that are playing teams that are not in the championship. And that's Swansea are playing Crawley, Preston are playing Barrow, Middlesbrough are playing Doncaster Rovers, and Millwall are playing Newport County. Those 4 championship teams definitely stronger than their opposition on paper. That 4-timer's coming out at 5-1, which we think is not a bad bet at all.
Okay, Matt, thank you very much indeed. That was a look at the latest odds. Thanks to Matt at BetMGM. Visit betmgm.co.uk. Download the app. 18+, begambleaware.org.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Keep things golden with responsible play at betmgm.co.uk. 18+, gambleaware.org.
Matt's actually absolutely spot on with that. Regards Rangers, if they go through tonight,
they got 3 things.
There's a third qualifying round.
So all this euphoria,
and I think he threw in it was Red Bull, Salzburg, or Bruges would be next.
Yeah, I mean that's when it becomes very much more difficult. I mean, Panathinaikos was considered to be a difficult.
That was tricky.
They went past Panathinaikos, albeit they defended well to have to do it and rode their luck. They looked like they're going to smash this side, but when they get in against Bruges, that were in the group stages last year, weren't they? I think.
Okay, well,
they're going to have these are tough
in any case, let them go on with
3 legs. Seems to be a lot of qualifying to get into the Champions League
for sure.
stages.
Yeah. Oh, they're putting them through it. You get put through it if you want to make the serious end of the Champions League, and quite rightly so. So they've got rid of Panathinaikos Rangers. They hope to get rid of Victoria Pilsen tonight, and then it's either Red Bull, Salzburg, or Bruges. Many of you getting in touch, some of it hilarious, about the little toddler crying out during the tennis match over in Cincinnati, match between Raducanu and Sabalenka, and Raducanu, for one, not happy, complaining to the umpire that this kid was shouting out, should a young child be in a tennis court at a match of that magnitude at all? Should a little toddler be in sport like snooker or like tennis, etc., etc.? And many messages coming in. A baby at tennis, nobody expressed the obvious. The child was baking. It was intense heat. I totally agree with Simon. It's wholly inappropriate to have a baby there. The umpire should have had the family removed. Simon is talking absolute common sense in this one, says Mike Dale. And then there is Daz from Arbroath. Arbroath Smokies. Have you ever eaten one?
No.
Beautiful. Fish delicacy.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Hello, dear soft-hearted, delusional Jim. Oh, that must be me. Simon is correct again. Tennis is a game of physical performance at a very high level. High level concentration as well. So you can take your streaming child to a football game, as it's noisy anyway. Tennis and snooker require singular moments of high concentration. Think with your head, not your wee soft heart, Jim. Your wee soft heart. It's somebody from Arbroath telling me that.
Someone was making a point that Sabalenka makes a lot of noise during the game.
This is true.
But I don't suppose that she grunts unwillingly when someone serves at her, does she? So he's lining up to serve. She doesn't just grunt across the court at her, does she? So that's what we're talking about. I don't think we're talking about in the middle of a rally. We're talking about when a player sets up to serve, getting all their concentration together. If the opposition grunted across the court before a ball would even be served, there'd be something done about it.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, Raducanu ended up losing the match, but it was nothing to do with the small kid shouting out. One would think.
No, true. But that's
who knows? Preston North End manager Paul Heckinbottom, who has been in this very building and been on this very show, I like Paul, but he's criticised a personal trainer for being used regarding a forward who I think is on loan at the moment. Daniel Jebison's on loan from Bournemouth to Preston. But this lad Jebison sustained an injury and is likely to be out for a month after an ankle injury sustained from what was a private fitness session with his private fitness trainer. This was Heckinbottom on it.
Jebo's, I'm angry about that one. A growing trend of footballers when they work with people outside, they have their own people who they work with, and he's been working with a fella called Tom King. I'm frustrated. Listen, it's an accident, I get it, but it's not happening anymore with any Preston players. We had it with Freddie last season doing the same, and these guys they work with these players and they post the work all over social media and want to promote the business, and they're happy to take the money. Don't give us any money back when they injure the players in their sessions. So, yeah, they'll not be posting on social media that Jebo's out for a month. So I'll tell everyone that when they work with players, they can put them out as well. So really angry about that.
He is really angry about that, isn't he?
Yeah, there goes Tom King's business.
Calling out the fitness trainer as well. I mean, should players be chastised or applauded for taking extra steps outside the club to improve their own physical condition? Which was what he was trying to do.
The fact is, there's been a consequence to it. Now, of course, the club would take the upside if the personal trainer had enhanced his performance.
Exactly.
But the player's now being paid for being injured for an injury that was created without the jurisdiction. I mean, the physical fitness of a player is in part the club's responsibility and the player's responsibility. And I think there's a clear delineation that it's expected that the club provides a training environment for players to be operating in, to get themselves to a level to be, effective in the purpose that they've been bought for or trained for, which is to play for the football club. Now, if clubs, I mean, once upon a time, you remember when Ferguson used to rant and rave about players driving certain cars. And so where did the jurisdiction go? You know, go down to the car garage and chastise the car salesman for selling the guy the wrong car.
Yeah.
But there is an element of the responsibility. The consequences of this action have been that the club have been compromised because the player, but he's on loan, isn't he? So he's got nothing really to do with the club. He's out on loan, isn't he?
Yeah, it's just he's on to them. He's on loan to them from Bournemouth.
Oh, he's on loan to them.
But
right. He's not even their player.
But the fact of the matter is, he's got his own personal trainer.
But he's not even their player.
He's trying to get a bit of extra edge in terms of training pre-season.
But this takes on a new dimension because he's not even their player.
Mm-hmm.
They've taken him on loan.
Mm-hmm.
So the club that
he's unavailable now.
But that's just the byproduct of taking a player on loan. He's not under your jurisdiction. He's not under your governance. You've got him on loan. He's under the governance of the football club. That's his parent company, which is the club that owns his registration.
I mean, the wider argument is because of what's happened to the player, and he's now out. In an effort to sharpen up his fitness, would you be happy that one of you... Did they ever do it at Palace?
So let me extrapolate that up to just be a whataboutery for the purpose of this conversation to expand it. What about a chef at home? and somehow you eat something that disagrees with, and you get a bit of food poisoning, or you have an allergic reaction, and find yourself, like Luke's doing, on the dump button all the time, literally.
Yeah. Yes, literally.
Then what would your attitude be then? So you get someone that looks after a player, cooks for him, makes sure he eats a nutritious diet outside of the football stadium rather than chicken wings and McDonald's like Matthew Letizia used to eat.
Yes.
And subsequently he gets some sort of ailment result. Would you take umbrage at the fact that he's eaten and has a chef?
I get the fact. I know where you're going with it, and only you could bring up that when you have a chef in at home who's cooking for you.
But they do, don't they?
And you eat something that hasn't quite agreed.
But they do. We've seen.
Have you had that with the odd chef?
They make a 4-act play.
Yeah.
We've seen that they've all got their own private chefs. I mean, we're talking about not necessarily at Preston's level, but we're talking about top end footballers now. Are islands in their own right? But they're earning £200 million a year. They're going to do what they want, when they want, how they want.
But Jebuson's trying to get an edge. He's trying to improve his own physical fitness by bringing.
But he hasn't.
By bringing his own trainer.
Right.
So fair play to him, and he didn't see this coming, but it has, and he's out for a month.
Okay, but the question is what did the trainer do that was different from what he would have done on the training ground? Because he could have done this injury on the training ground. He's just having a turn because the player's injured himself and he wants to have a go at it, exactly. And he's frustrated.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is the player is being diligent about being at the very best version of himself. If the personal trainer isn't good enough, then one has to question the player's judgment.
Yeah.
And should clubs get involved in saying the only place you ever train is with us?
Yeah.
Now, most of the time, you have to drag these buggers to the training ground as a matter of course. So I'm surprised that you've got this added layer of complexity about how much extra training they do.
I agree with you. You ever had jippy tummy from something that you've eaten when you brought in a chef, as you often do at Jordan Towers?
No. It's not difficult for the chef to make me the beans on toast that I require.
Of course, I know that's been your.
Although I like the bread freshly made and kneaded for me.
Here's one for you: boxing back on free-to-air TV. What's that all about? We'll look at it next. Jim White and Simon Jordan, and we are live on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at selcobw.com. Any deals that go down in the world of transfers, of course, will bring you the news first and fastest right here on talkSPORT. And I shall be with you, of course, on deadline day itself. Somewhat unusually, deadline itself is 7 in the evening.
Is it?
So it's an earlier than usual deadline this season. I can't remember that happening in the past, but maybe it did, maybe it didn't. There have been so many. Simon, I tell you what, I was somewhat wrong-footed when I heard this news. I wasn't working at the time, but I thought, oh, that's interesting. I wonder where that's going to go. In the world of boxing, boxer Ben Shalom and his company Boxer has signed a broadcast deal, but not with one of the satellite companies. It's with the BBC, meaning boxing returns free to air. Anyway, this was Ben Shalom on talkSPORT talking about it.
It was something that I didn't think would be possible. It was something that we dreamt of doing, was bringing boxing back to primetime BBC. I think it's been 25 years.
Is it?
And it's what you want from the sport. You know, it's how the sport develops, it's how it grows, it's how it creates the household names. It's how do we get it in front of the biggest possible audience. And I have to thank everyone. I have to thank the BBC because, you know, for them, this is a monumental move to put, as I say, world-class boxing on primetime television.
And if you like sport, Saturday nights is the day, isn't it? To stay in and boxing on just before match of the day.
It is. So everything all week will be shown on the BBC iPlayer, and then we'll have the best slot I think you could possibly ask for. A couple of 2.5 hours leading into match of the day. Multi-fight, multi-year deal. So it's a historic moment for boxing, and we're always competing for eyeballs with other sports. We're always wanting to be on the front pages, and this puts us firmly in the front page.
Now, listening to Ben, if that's true, why didn't he seek out the BBC as his first port of call instead of Sky?
Because Sky would have paid him more money, I suspect.
Yeah. So why is he making it sound? Is he glossing over this?
I think first of all, I think it's a great thing for boxing. I think Shalom's business is almost an incubator business. If you look at the talent that he's acquired, with the exception of Eubank, it's been younger fighters that are coming up and that haven't got the names, that are being built up into potential superstars. Whittaker being one of them, and other fighters that he's had in his stable that would be, that would earmark for success, whether it be Fraser Clark or other people that have had bumps in the road. Now you get it on a legacy broadcaster. Now his commercial model will have to change. That's for him. But what you've got is an opportunity to bring a significant sport back into the mainstream, outside the governance of pay-per-view and paywalls, which I would have thought most people would have appreciated. And whilst it will present some challenge to him commercially, what he gets is to build talent up and to build it up to a level that might be the challenge when he gets it to the level of household name. Can he retain them? Because the Frank Warrens, the George Warrens, the Eddie Hearns of the world will see that talent and want to take it. But I think it's an interesting thing. People were dancing on Boxer's grave and assuming that because the Sky relationship had now finished, that was the end of them. And now I knew Ben had done a deal with the BBC a while ago, so I knew that at some point he was going to make the announcement. I think it has some challenges attached to it. He's got some very interesting fighters. He's got female fighters like Caroline Dubois, who are stars in their space, will be showcased. You're going to be able to watch boxing on a main broadcaster at 9:30 in the evening rather than at 11 o'clock. We've heard Turki Al-Sheikh talk about banging away at pay-per-view, and pay-per-view is going to be a thing of the past. I think that's a slight misrepresentation. They're going to bundle it up and charge you more money for your subscription rather than pay-per-view.
Yeah, so you mentioned someone like Ben Whittaker. He would want to fight, one would think, behind a paywall. Well,
not necessarily. He's going to want to fight in front of the biggest audiences.
On DAZN.
He's going to want to fight. He's going to want to fight in front of the biggest audiences.
No, the biggest purses.
And that's for Ben Shalom to be able to provide the finances. For whichever mechanism.
Free-to-air won't be able to compete with pay-per-view.
Well, the levers that Ben Shalom has to pull for his business are his concern. What we're talking about is this a good thing for boxing? Is it being on the BBC, one of the terrestrial broadcasters, a good thing? We've had arguments raging about pay-per-view and free-to-air broadcasters getting more sports content. So now you've got more sports content. I'm assuming the business model and the funding that Ben has been able to achieve out of the events that he's got, and again, Eubank Ben too will line his pockets quite nicely, I suspect.
Oh, sure.
Which will enable him to be able to make decisions commercially about which level of his business is incubator, i.e. young talent that's coming through, that's being showcased on the BBC, against established talent that's becoming household names. If you're a sportsman and you're playing a longer game and you want to be a household name, Barry McGuigan is a household name. not because he fought behind pay-per-view, but because he fought on BBC.
Yeah.
And fight environments like that. And ultimately, it has longer-term benefits for you.
We've moved on from those times, though, Simon, to be quite honest.
We haven't. Hang on.
Ben's not in this game as a promoter to bring through young talent.
No,
he's putting a brave face on this.
He's in this game.
Warren and Hearn and the rest of them are in it to make huge amounts of money, which they're doing.
And so is he. He's in this game to be able to be as commercially viable as he possibly can. Now, whether you can compete with Hearn and Frank Warren because they've got years on you, they've got better capital bases than you, they're better established than you, and you've had to pivot off into a different direction to make your business viable, that's for Ben Shalom to work out. Right? And for him to be able to determine whether he can continue with an output deal with the BBC alongside marquee fights like Eubank versus Ben at Tottenham Stadium against output deals he's got in America when he's got broadcast deals over there. I'm sure he can work that out for himself.
I know where you're going with young talent, but big names in the sport of boxing are not interested in fights that are free to air.
Well, it depends how they're getting paid. And if they're getting paid by a promoter that's taking an educated punt on the lifetime value of a boxer, which is basically, I can monetize you for a whole different set of ways, right? I'll take the punt of paying you £2 million for that fight when I'm only getting a certain amount back from the broadcast deals that I'm getting because I have a view commercially about your lifetime value. That's about how Ben gets himself funded. If Ben goes and gets a whole lot of funding into boxer that enables him to make those commercial decisions and then utilises it to make fights like Ben versus Eubank that have nothing to do with the BBC, they can make a fortune on over here, then I'm sure that actually the landscape, and if you listen to what Eddie Hearn had to say about it, he has he thinks that the same challenges as you think, which is commercially that at the top end of the sport is going to be difficult. But at the bottom end, it can be hugely advantageous for the boxing world. It could give the boxing world a shot in the arm, albeit the brilliance of what Frank Warren has done, because what Frank has done, opening up the Saudi marketplace, creating the opportunity. No one did it before.
Okay.
Now, Turkey Al-Sheikh may be doing his own thing now, but the innovation was Frank Warren's.
And you truly believe this about Ben?
I think he's got a chance. I don't think it's easy. Why should it be easy?
Yeah.
I think
you're not just saying it because you're a pal.
In an ideal world, I think probably Ben Shalom would have liked the commercial opportunities that Sky gave.
Sure.
But Sky's a different animal now and didn't want to do that. So he's pivoted and found a different alternative outcome. And we'll see. And I think we should be actually looking at it again, where if it gets young fighters and the boxing world into another space where it's another sport that's being promoted through another set of mediums, how's that a bad thing?
Oh, it's not a bad thing.
It's a good thing.
It's all about the motivation for doing it, though, isn't it? When we come back the other side of 12 noon, we shall hear from, amongst others, Rio Ferdinand.
The Six Nations, where giants do battle and legends are made. Epic sports which demands an epic voiceover every time. and actually has an interesting story as well. It all started back in 1871 when Scotland beat England in the very first international rugby match. The other home nations were a bit jealous, wanted in on the action, and after England played Wales in 1882, they all decided to hold an annual festival of international rugby, or the Home International Championship, which kicked off a year after. Now, the first decade was dominated by England and Scotland until Wales finally won in 1893 and Ireland a year later. After years of dipping in and out of the championship, France was invited to join full-time in 1910. But because France isn't a home nation, they had to give it a rebrand and settle on the Five Nations. But France were actually kicked out of the tournament in 1931. They were accused of paying players when rugby was still strictly an amateur sport. They had to wait years to be let back in, but after World War II, the Five Nations resumed. Didn't always run smoothly though, like in 1973 when all 5 teams won 2 matches and lost 2 matches. Now, because they didn't do points difference at the time, they just decided that everyone was the champion. It's like trying to keep kids happy, you know, the whole "you're all winners." In the years following, other teams in Europe started to get better at rugby and actually got to a stage where they were regularly beating teams in the Five Nations. In 1997, Italy beat Scotland, France and Ireland home and away. So 2 years later, the Five Nations invited Italy in, creating the Six Nations as we know it. In recent years, there have been calls to expand the tournament further to other European teams. Georgia and Portugal have been prime candidates to join of late. It's also been suggested there could be 2 tiers with promotion and relegation to promote growth of the sport in Europe. But the existing nations are a bit reluctant. So for now, it looks like the Six Nations, or Six Nations, or Sei Nazioni, is here to stay.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's 5 minutes past 12 noon. It's Jim White and it's Simon Jordan, and we are live on talkSPORT this Tuesday lunchtime. As well as all that, we're coming to you live on YouTube and your smart TV. For all the information on how to watch the show, just head to talksport.com/watch. And thanks to everybody for all the messages, all the texts and the tweets that are coming in. We're only back yesterday, him and I together, Mr. Jordan and myself together again. But my goodness, you seem to have locked in as you always do. Thank you so much for the support you give us between 10 and 1 weekdays live on talkSPORT. A lot to get through in the final hour today. Of course, we were talking yesterday with Moses Itauma, the young boxer who goes in. Big things expected of him, of course, and he's an explosive talent. And he goes in this weekend against Dillian White in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. How did your top boxing show go yesterday, Simon? No doubt, off the back of talking to Itauma live on this show, you know they'll be talking about him again.
Well, they also, Spencer's in Saudi Arabia was talking to Dillian White. Mark Tibbs was in, who was Dillian White's former trainer, who's a great font of knowledge, and Adam Catchell, I think, is brilliant, was him. So yeah, lots of stuff, really good.
Yeah, really good. We're going to talk to Francis Warren, son of Frank Warren, who looks after Moses Itauma during the final hour here as Itauma gets ready for the biggest test he faces yet as he goes into the against the vastly experienced Dillian White. Before all that, though, of course, hardly a day goes by when I'm not asked, Simon's not asked, by some football fan somewhere, what about Manchester United? What kind of season do we expect Manchester United to have this time around after the quite indifferent end to the season last time around? Of course, under Ruben Amorim, who came in mid-term, but of course got them to a European final, which they lost to Tottenham. And then they had a hugely indifferent finish with a very highly unusual placing for Manchester United in the Premier League at the end of the Premier League campaign. What can we expect this time around? On board this time, Cunha, Mbeumo and now Sesko. So nobody better than former defender Rio Ferdinand to tell me, what about United this time?
Definitely on the right track in terms of the way that they're working together. The togetherness that I saw there was a very kind of positive outlook for me. But also, I think it was the big thing I walked away from there thinking is, please do a bit more in the window. And they have. They've gone and bought a number 9 now. And you're looking at it like, well, OK, they've got a front three that scored more goals collectively than the whole of the Man United team last year. So that's a definite upgrade in that sense. But still greedy and want 1 or 2 more.
I mean, I can't imagine what your worst finish was as a United player under Sir Alex. But I mean, 15th last season. I mean, United fans must be still scratching their head. You must be still scratching your head about that.
Yeah, only because of the success of the club over the given years. Not just my generation, before me as well. I think the club's steeped in a history of winning. And to see the club kind of where they finished last season, the temperature around the club for different reasons since Sir Alex and his regime has left, there's been a downward spiral, but the negativity is obvious, and it's expected if you finish that low, given what the past has been like. But I think this game's about cycles. You got to have your moments where you've got to lick your wounds a bit, but then you've got to show the fight to come back, and the spirit of this football club suggests that we will come back. It's just we want it sooner rather than later.
There's still time, Rio, obviously, for them to do business before the window shuts. That said, do you think we're really about to see what this guy Amorim is really about?
Well, yeah, I've always said that he needs to get some of his players in to be able to implement his tactics. He has a particular way of playing that needs a certain DNA of a certain player. Until he gets a few of those in the door, it's difficult to judge him. I think now he's had time through pre-season to train a team, to get to know the players better. He's recruited now, I think 4 players he's got through the door now. I still think he needs another window. But I would like to think now we're going to see more traits of a Ruben Amorim team this season.
Are you worried about the guys at the back?
I'm worried about the first 6 games of the season, if I'm honest.
Really?
I think it's a hard start. I think Liverpool, I think we might have City in there, Arsenal first day of the season, amongst some other hard games. So it's a very difficult start. And all that good work that's being done on the training field right now, a couple of bad results can undo that. And we know what it's like at Man United, the pressure that comes with that, the attention, the focus, the negativity then spreads through, it becomes a difficult place to be. So I hope they get some decent results early on to really kind of weather it, like steady the ship and let us move on and build some confidence.
But when you were there, Sir Alex had people like you and Vidic and umpteen people that could lift spirits.
Yeah.
Have they got that?
I think they have, but I think they need results. I think the likes of myself, Nemanja Vidic, the Roy Keanes of this world, the Giggsies, they'd struggle here in this climate, the way it's going. It's hard there to be under that pressure where you can't see a result coming around the corner or you can't see any consistency. So I think all of us would struggle in this environment, but I think they've got to build something together now that's going to be unique in Manchester United's history.
Are you happy to see Garnacho go if he goes? Would you be happy to see Scott McTominay come back?
I don't think that's going to happen, but I think Garnacho, I've said for a long time, as a football player, I wouldn't want to see him go. But football's not just about what you do out on the pitch. I think everything's got to marry up, and if the manager deems that he's not the right type that he wants in the football club, then we've just got to hold our hands up and say, right, you've got to do what you've got to do. But I'd love to see Garnacho at the club for years because I think he's an asset.
Are you worried about Liverpool if they get Isak?
It'd be a nightmare because that makes them a real challenge on every front. Depth in their squad. Ekitike, they've got him as well. They become a massive problem. They're going to be a problem anyway in the Champions League, but I think with Isak, big problem.
Final question, who wins it?
The Premier League. I think the recruitment they've done, given they've won the league as well, and what they've got already, their experience, I think Liverpool have to be the team to beat, unfortunately.
And a glance to the camera at the end, if you're watching on YouTube there, it's Liverpool and only Liverpool, says Rio. If they get Isak, even more so.
Well, they're the current champions and they've strengthened. So given they have strengthened, one would expect it to be that they are, in most people's minds, the favourites. But, you know, Arsenal have strengthened. Arsenal have brought in players. Zubimendi, Goicoechea up top. People said that they're centre-forward away from being a serious challenger and that they finished second in the league on 3 occasions now, and that the next step was to win the league. So Arsenal will be in the mix. It's not about what Liverpool do, it's about what other people do.
Yeah, sure.
So Liverpool will do what they do, and Arsenal will do what they do, and Man City, I think it's a fascinating Premier League. It's a fascinating Premier League every year.
Oh, it is.
But all the
This
challenges
time around, you're right, Simon.
Yeah, there's so much.
Yeah.
There's so many different things that are going on with obviously clubs that are coming up and promoted that are big football clubs like Sunderland and Leeds that are coming into the Premier League with big fan bases. Then in Sunderland's a case they've been out for some time. Leeds have bounced back after a couple of years away, and you look at it now and you think this Premier League shapes up to be great. And look at the players that have been brought in. So Liverpool I think, will be the team to beat to win the league. If you finish above Liverpool, you win the league.
As you were getting the impression that was an event in central London, and time is against you. You're against the clock to do an interview like that. So we got through as much material as we possibly could, Rio and myself. Were you surprised to hear him say that likes of himself, Keane, Giggs, would have a problem trying to be successful in the current United setup?
Well, I don't know if he knows. I mean, obviously, I don't know if they're on the training ground. I mean, they know what they know. And obviously they know the football club very well, and they've played for it in a different version of itself. I don't know how close they would be to the training ground environments. I would suspect that by the very nature of having a Rio Ferdinand and Roy Keane in that environment, then you wouldn't have the problems that you've got now.
Yeah.
And the reasons why they have got the problems they've got now is because they haven't got Rio Ferdinands, Roy Keanes, Ryan Giggs, and other people that were A, very good at what they're doing, but B, very strong leaders. We clearly have looked at Man United for some time and said it lacks leadership. And leadership was not something that it lacked when it had Rio Ferdinand and specifically Roy Keane in its mix.
Exactly.
So I think it was a sort of an oxymoron, what he was saying there.
I mean, of course, McTominay's not going to go back because he's become a regular and a big favourite at Napoli. Maybe further down the line in his career, he might end up back at Old Trafford, who knows? But he's saying, he would wish Garnacho was still going to be there. But Garnacho's more than likely going to go to Chelsea. It's all going to be changed at United, Simon,
for the better,
in terms of the personnel. But that's what I'm coming to. Last season's finish, is that as low as they're going to go?
Well, I thought so. I thought that you can't bounce until you hit the bottom. And for whatever reason, Ruben Amorim wanted to make sure they hit the bottom. Whether it be through the selection of players that were playing in positions that they weren't capable of doing, or whether it was the culture that he was engendering by telling everybody how bleeding awful they were, or whether it was simply that he just wanted to weather the storm of getting through this season, was prepared to take all the slings and arrows to rebuild the football club in the image that he wants. And we'll see if he's the real deal.
Do you think he will be? Do you think they'll turn the corner and he'll be the business, or do you think he'll go?
Well, it's difficult to say, because at this moment in time, you can only go on what you've seen. What you've seen is he's done some very significant things in Portugal. He photobombed every football club during the summer last year to try and get himself a job, which doesn't seem the behaviour of an elite manager. He's come in there, he's made Man United worse, which surely can't be the default setting of any manager, which is create myself a different set of challenges. The people that have employed him, I think, have got most things wrong currently. In terms of, I bow to the acumen of Jim Ratcliffe in every other walk of life. And, people can cite the fact, you lost a fortune in a football club, so what do you know about it? But I know what mistakes look like, and I know what judgment calls are, and I know that Ten Hag should have been taken out in the summer and not left to go in October, November, December, which everyone said was going to happen, and what duly happened. So what a waste of time and energy that was. And I look at this and the pursuit of Dave Brailsford, the pursuit of Dan Ashworth.
Yeah.
The idea that Dave Brailsford provides solutions, all of these things to me don't give me a confidence in the selection process. So that means to go to your question and to compartmentalise that, I don't know. Because Brett Amorim has shown me nothing. He's shown me how to make a side worse. He's shown me how not to handle media. He's shown me how to talk about things and then backtrack on it and say it's because I'm a young manager. You're the manager of Man United. You don't get your age brought into the equation. You're the manager of Manchester United. And so I will only be able to answer that question when this season kicks off and we're 10 games in, and whoever they're playing, they're Arsenal the first game of the season, then Fulham, then Burnley, whoever else they've got, we'll see then. But I like the signings. I think they're going to improve them. I don't agree with Rio's assessment on Garnacho. I think he's a little runt. He should be drop-kicked out of Man United at the first available opportunity for a decent amount of money, because he doesn't understand which football club he's playing for. And I'm not interested in his opinions about who didn't support him, who didn't clap him when he wasn't, when he scored a goal, or which football club strip he can wear to appreciate Marcus Rashford's contribution. Okay. I'm not interested in any of that. I'm interested in a player that plays for arguably the biggest club in English football and respects that opportunity, and he doesn't.
As you rightly say, Simon, Manchester United kick off against Arsenal. Thereafter, Rio Ferdinand says that's tough and it will get tougher. We shall see how United get on. This lunchtime, in the last few moments, very strong words coming out of Crystal Palace. Of course, off the back of that CAS hearing announcement yesterday that they'd failed with their appeal and they wished to be reinstated to the Europa League next season. That didn't happen. It's the Europa Conference League next season for them. But strong words coming out of Palace. More on that next. Tuesday lunchtime, Crystal Palace continue to be in the news. They were in the news yesterday, of course. In the news because they've been winning. But it's the ramifications of those wins which comes into question. Crystal Palace won the Community Shield at the weekend, of course. Before that, they won the FA Cup. It was a great end to the season for them. They beat Manchester City in the final on a famous day at Wembley, and for the first time they won the FA Cup. That entitled them to play Europa League football, but because of the involvement of former co-owner John Textor, who was in the studio very recently with Simon and myself, billionaire co-owner John Textor, Palace were said to be in breach of UEFA's multi-club ownership rules and were thrown out of the Europa League this upcoming season and will have to compete in the Europa Conference League. Palace appealed against that decision, and of course we know that yesterday they lost that appeal, and whether they like it or whether they don't, it's the Europa Conference League for them this season, described by you, Simon, now and again as the runt of the litter of European football.
Which it is.
Which it is, okay, in your view. Palace, this lunchtime, have come out with a very hard-hitting statement.
Is it?
Some key lines out of it, Simon. At a time when we should be celebrating our victory in the Community Shield at Wembley, the decision by UEFA, and followed by the Court of Arbitration for Sport, shows that sporting merit is rendered meaningless. When we won the FA Cup against City on that momentous day in May, our manager and players earned the right to play Europa League football. We have been denied that opportunity. It appears that certain clubs, organisations and individuals have a unique privilege and power. So the suggestion there being, in Palace's eyes this lunchtime, there's a kind of them and us scenario here.
Yep.
While we respect the CAS tribunal members, the process is designed to severely restrict and, in our case, make it almost impossible to receive a fair hearing. So they say they didn't even get a fair hearing. This should be a turning point for football. UEFA must fulfil its mandate to pass coherent rules which are properly communicated and applied, with reasonable cure periods to resolve uncertainty and consistent sanctions.
Yeah.
Treating all clubs equally with a proper appeal process. Although we continue to take legal action on the next steps, we will compete in the Europa Conference League with the same determination and will to win that characterises this incredible club. What's your take on all of that? To me, it sounds like too little, too late.
Well, I think there's a lot of it that has merit. I think the fundamental message is absolution from their own responsibilities, which is that they sold shares to somebody, allowed him to buy another football club, and ignored UEFA's governance, despite being clearly evidence that they knew what it was and provided for it in their own accounts. And so this is an issue. I mean, I don't admire things about Steve Parish because of my personal experiences with him, but his achievements at Palace have been remarkable. He's done a brilliant job for Crystal Palace. He's done a brilliant job for Steve Parish as well. But he's made a mistake here.
They missed the deadline.
They've made a mistake. And they've made a mistake. They decided to sell shares in the football club. They decided to accept the principles of the investment that's put in place. They knew the governance, despite their ridiculous proclamations that they didn't, because they provided for it in their own accounts that were filed at the end of 2024. So it's silly. Now, I agree with him entirely that this is unfair. The whole issue of governance in sport is beginning to conflict sporting merit, but without governance, you don't have a framework. So it's about the right governance. He references the European Court of Justice and says yes, that the European Court of Justice made it clear that rulings similar to this will have greater scrutiny from the courts going forward. Oh, watch yourself, Steve, because it wasn't so long ago that the European Court of Justice ruled about freedom of movement for players inside contracts and potentially unwind the entire transfer system. So don't be too clever about bringing in the European Court of Justice as having a higher level of scrutiny, because they've just scrutinised the Diarra case, which enabled players to remove themselves from contracts. So you be careful how you use that particular reference point. They're going to do nothing. They're going to have a little shout and tell you how disappointed they are, remove themselves from any equation. And people were observing yesterday that my issue is with Parish. No, it's not. I think he's run the football club brilliantly. But my personal experiences with him is irrelevant. I think he's run the football club brilliantly. And Palace have gone through a unique period of success because of his involvement. But they've made a mistake here. And you can blame everybody else but yourselves if you want. You can say you haven't been given a fair hearing. I'm sure Kaz would have something to say about whether that's a fair hearing or not. You can talk about the appeal process and the fact that you weren't able to get disclosure during the appeal process I'm assuming with UEFA rather than CAS, because I think disclosure formed a part of the CAS appearance, which is the reason why Nottingham Forest and Olympic Lyon were in the hearing.
But you often demand that nuance and context should be applied to everything.
Yeah, of course.
Not here, it would seem. This was a simple case of you missed a deadline, Crystal Palace.
Yes.
And because of that, you are being demoted. There's a key line in here for me, Simon.
And you couldn't convince us about decisive influence as a result of it. And you couldn't convince them ultimately, factually, that you weren't part of a multi-club ownership.
Right.
Multi-club ownership is the nuance and context. If the nuance to it is, if you have an ability to be in a multi-club, or you're being indicated that one of your significant shareholders is part of a multi-club ownership. And by the way, let's have it right, David Blitzer is categorically probably more multi-club ownership than actually John Textor is. So you could have that conversation about Bromby and their participation in the European Conference League.
Well, that apart, I think you would concede, though, that CAS here didn't care about nuance and context. It's simple. There was a deadline, you lot missed it.
Yeah, but you're taking nuance and context as to be background noise and to be unconsumed or unaware of other facts that contribute to the outcome. There aren't any other facts. The facts in this case...
There's no excuse.
There's no excuse. There's no context and nuance.
What do you make about the fourth line? It appears that certain clubs, this is Crystal Palace's words, it appears that certain clubs, organisations and individuals have a unique privilege and power. Now, I take from that, would they have kicked out from the Europa League, Manchester United or Barcelona or something like that? It's us. It's poor little Palace.
But that's the point that he wants to make. Now, I'd have a bit more respect.
Is he right on that?
Well, he may well be. He may well be, because we talk about a Big Six, we talk about the voting rights inside the Premier League, we talk about how people operate in a certain way. The more interesting one is the line where they compound the injustice. Clubs that appear to have huge informal arrangements with each other are also allowed to participate and even possibly play against each other. Now, I'm assuming he means Nottingham Forest and Lyon, and I assume he's pointing at an underlying relationship between Marinakis and Textor, because there's been lots of assertions about how Nottingham Forest have done deals with Lyon during a period of time which has helped both football clubs. So I'm assuming he's saying that. I'd rather he said it rather than infer it, but perhaps he doesn't want the legal heat as a result of it. This is a statement saying we want to absolve ourselves from any responsibility for the position that we put ourselves in. The law is an ass. The law is an ass. But you knew that it was an ass. And you chose to allow that ass to kick you up your ass.
Yes.
So here we are, with the bottom line is that Palace brought it upon themselves. Is it fair? Is it just? Is it right that there's the football clubs that have more influence and power? Yeah, there probably are. Is it right? Probably not. Is it the way that the world hangs together? Probably. And if you had created a situation, if Nottingham Forest can find their way through their challenges, why couldn't Crystal Palace find their way through theirs?
Exactly.
Marinakis was subject to the same rules.
Exactly.
Nottingham Forest might have been a massive football club when Brian Clough was there. But it's been languishing outside the Premier League for the best part of a quarter of a century.
But if Forest knew the rules, you're right.
They will say the reasons why they knew the rules is because what does Marinakis own? Olympiacos. Where do they regularly compete in? European competitions. But by Palace's own admission, they knew that there was governance changes. They provided it in Schedule G of their accounts. Their own FC
this statement this lunchtime need an apology.
From who?
From whoever wrote the statement, from Crystal Palace itself, to their own fans.
No, look, Parish?
It's their mistake.
Parish has made a mistake, and
Simon, it's a whopper.
Yeah, it's a mistake. He's made lots of good decisions, and it's a really unfortunate set of circumstances. And part of me thinks, good, about time you had to come up with a few things you've gotten away with. There's another part of me that feels very sorry for the Crystal Palace fan base.
Of course, because you're a Palace fan.
There's also another part of me that recognises this man has presided over a significant period of massive investment in a football club, a significant period of success, and he has to be given the prerequisite amount of respect for it. And people now jumping on his, on his grave, saying it's all down to you. Yeah, it's down to Parish. It absolutely is. But does that mean that everything that he's done is good? It gets wiped away because he's made one mistake. You show me everybody in life that makes mistakes.
Of course, I agree with you.
So the fact of the matter is, he's going to have to take a bit of medicine. What he's trying to do now is absolve himself from the responsibility. He can't blame Textor. He can't blame UEFA. He can't blame the Court of Arbitration of Sport. He can't blame the other powerful football clubs. Have a look at yourselves and what you didn't do. And if you'd have done it, you wouldn't be in this position.
And Palace this lunchtime finish off by saying they'll continue to take legal advice.
They're going to do nothing.
But, incidentally, we'll compete in the Europa Conference League with the same determination and will to win. Be interesting if Nottingham Forest win the Europa League, won't it?
Shin pads are a footballer's best friend. Even if players like Jack Grealish do wear such small ones you can barely even see them. But what's the story with shin pads, and are there actually any rules on how big they should be? It all started with cricket, actually. Cricketers had been wearing shin pads since the 1700s. It was thanks to this guy that shin protection made its way over to football. Meet Samuel Widdowson. He was a cricketer and a footballer. He played for Nottingham Forest back in the late 1800s, and he wanted a way to protect his legs from nasty tackles. Naturally, his mind drifted to his other favourite sport, where players had been wearing these pads for a century. Story goes, Widdowson cut up his cricket pads and popped them on before taking to the footy pitch. His Nottingham Forest team then began wearing them from 1887, and the first known use of them in a match was in 1894, in a match between Newcastle and the then Woolwich Arsenal. Eventually, FIFA clocked on that this kind of protection was pretty important for footballers. And so, in 1990, basically 100 years after Widdowson first put them on, shin pads were made compulsory. It became part of Law 4 of IFAB. That's the body responsible for setting the laws of the game internationally. But the law doesn't actually specify anything about measurements of shin pads. It just says they must be made of a suitable material and be of an appropriate size to provide reasonable protection. It's really vague, even though there have been calls for it to be changed. But for now, that's why Grealish and co can still get away with these ones, which are no bigger than a credit card and which seem to offer little to no protection whatsoever.
So here we go again. The NFL returns to Wembley in October as the LA Rams take on Jacksonville Jaguars, and our competition to win VIP tickets is very much open to you. That's right, we're going to give you the chance to win 6 seats in a private box at Wembley Stadium with full hospitality and $5,000 to go with it. Here's how you can win it. You've got to be 18 and over, UK excluding Northern Ireland. For your chance to win, text the word cash to H3338 and then you're in the draw. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission, or you can enter for free by calling 0330 880 3338. All entries must be received by the 25th of August at 11 at night. This is a talkSPORT limited promotion run on talkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com. In this final half hour, we shall head out to Saudi Arabia as the build-up is really seriously beginning for the big fight this weekend, a fight you can hear live on talkSPORT. Moses Itauma goes in, of course, against Dillian White. It's a kind of
big fight.
Inexperienced fighter against a guy with shed loads of experience. But the inexperienced fighter, Moses Itauma, is an explosive fighter. It's going to be something else, I think, that you're looking forward to, aren't you?
I'm looking forward to the whole card. I think Frank has put a fabulous card together. You've got Nick Ball defending his world title against Sam Goodman, and you've also got David Adelaide fighting Filip Hrgovic, which is another potentially explosive fight. So there's some really good fights on the card. It's a really good card.
Takes my mind, just to digress for a second. The Club World Cup, one of the various innovations they brought in there was this ref cam thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, for you, Simon, Chelsea, of course, won it in the end. Of course, we heard from Todd Bowley on this very show the following day, which was great. But Chelsea won it, yeah, that's one thing. But all the various innovations they brought in, ref cam, to show you how a goal was scored and the rest view of it. Did you think that worked? Innovations in the game with the officials getting involved. Did you think that worked? I didn't on that front.
Not particularly.
No.
But you know my view. I'm a little bit resistant to the idea, and I understand why broadcasters want as much new content as they possibly can because it creates more engagement. I'm a little bit resistant to the idea that some of it is not particularly necessary or helpful. But I also understand, sitting on the other side of the equation, being a poacher and a gamekeeper sitting in the media, why it wants, or the media, and we want more stuff to be provided to us so that we can spend more time talking about it or analysing it or providing it as content.
Yeah.
But I think some of the idea that you talk to managers at half time and stuff like that, I don't think is right. I think it's not helping the product, because managers should be interested in talking to players about their performances.
Well, on that very topic, and you virtually taken me there, Simon, the Women's Super League clubs, the Women's Super League gets underway again. Super League clubs are said to be concerned over this new US-style broadcast proposal, which includes in-game interviews with managers.
At half-time.
In-game, during the match. During the first half, maybe during the second half. Yeah. For this coming season in the men's game, pitch-side interviews are going to be introduced to the Premier League. So we're going to see this on a regular basis in the men's game in this upcoming Premier League season, as well as cameras in, yes, the dressing rooms. Yeah. Sir Alex would have a fit. He said that's a sacrosanct area. Nothing should ever be broadcast out of there. But it's changing as part of more access for broadcasters included in the new deal. Where does it stop?
Well, look, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? On one hand, you know that the broadcasters and the revenue generated from the broadcasters over the years has created the phenomenon that the sport has now become. On the other side of it, I think if it starts to detract from the performances of the sport in its relentless pursuit of more information or more broadcastable innovations, then it becomes something else. I don't feel that I think there's already an entitlement that exists within certain sections of the media about what it's entitled to ask, what it's entitled to know, or what it's entitled to represent. I think there's certain aspects and certain value in a degree of mystique and enigma and scarcity. Scarcity sells. But I also understand that if you've opened that genie or taken that toothpaste out of the bottle by doing these all or nothings and till Sunderland till I die or whatever it was, you're giving the end user a feeling of that they want to have more and more insights. I think if you actually spent a lot of time in the dressing room, I never subscribed to the view that it was sacrosanct, because I think most of the time what goes on there is very, very, very disappointing. You'll be surprised.
Yeah, it's not that exciting. Yeah,
no, and you'll be very surprised that these so-called leaders of men, these Churchillian speeches that they do or don't give, and how absolutely lightweight they really are. And I think more often than not, it's about just the element of myth and keeping people out of certain environments, like directors and chairmen out of dressing rooms. In the same way, I'd be more than happy to keep the players and the manager out of the boardroom. Yeah, that doesn't seem to be. Doesn't quite work that way.
Well, that's going to be happening in the women's game. There's going to be in-game interviews, and it will be during play, not at halftime and not right on full time. That's happening in the women's game. Pitchside interviews being introduced in the Premier League, as well as cameras in the dressing rooms in the men's Premier League. That's almost upon us.
Is the men's Premier League going to do the same thing? They're going to have in-game interviews?
Not in-game.
No, I didn't think they would.
Halftime interviews,
right.
Pitchside interviews at halftime.
So the women's game should push back against it. Because that's almost saying that
the broadcasters are demanding it.
But yes, I understand that. But what the broadcasters demand and what they get are two different things. If they're demanding it and paying you a king's ransom to get it, then maybe you have to accept that the necessary evil to serve a greater good is more revenue for the game.
I agree, but the women's game wants to grow its brand. This is another way of them doing it.
But it's also it's a slightly diminishing way, because if it's not deemed good enough for the men, or considered to be an invasion of the men's protocols and procedures, why would it be any different for the women? They've got a job to do. They've got to manage a football team. They've got to deal with the inherent rigours of managing a side during the course of a half. Why would they want to be distracted by some gurning idiot asking them questions about what's going on in front of their eyes?
That was nice. The question is, where does it stop? Where might the next turn of the wheel actually take us? This passed me by, but at the weekend, Burnley became the first football club to present a game in virtual reality.
That's something different.
Did you hear about this, though?
But that's something completely different.
Fans could wear headsets from their homes to view the live action in the pre-season friendly against Lazio.
That's innovation. That's about opening up a digital marketplace.
That's good, isn't it?
Well, I think it's something different. Augmented reality is even better, because virtual reality is creating an image. Augmented reality is inserting yourself digitally into the real live event, in terms of you actually inside a Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and doing it in a very different way than virtual reality. That's ultimately using innovation and technology to increase the opportunity for viewership and to give people an experience.
You wonder where that might end. Where might it take us to, though, Simon? It might take us to people buying season tickets to watch their club in action,
of course,
through a virtual reality headset.
That's exactly where it will end. but it'll open up a digital marketplace. Now, we all know that you can do, in every event, you can do lots of things now, but the fact of the matter is live is live. You can only get, at Burnley, you can get 25,000 people in the stadium. You give them augmented reality, which is a reality of the stadium. They can pick their own seat, their own vantage point. It's almost like sitting in the actual stadium rather than a contrived digital environment.
Sure.
You will open up a marketplace of people around the world.
Yeah.
What it means is it's a challengeable event for the broadcasters. They got up their game in terms of what sort of content they produce. I think it's great innovation. It's not the same as interrupting a man whilst at work or a lady at work in the middle of a game to ask them a ridiculous question whilst they're in the middle of managing a bloody football team.
Okay, thank you for that. From Burnley to Saudi Arabia. Yes, really. We're going to head out there next, finish off the show today, and we're going to hear from Moses Itauma and the man he's up against this weekend, the hugely experienced Dillian White.
Boxing update on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Buy now at dazn.com/boxing.
Now then, as most of you will know, this Saturday DAZN brings you 5 huge fights in one night. Unbeaten rising star Moses Itauma takes on the proven and dangerous Dillian Whyte in a heavyweight showdown. And all the action from Nick Ball, David Adley, Raymond Ford and Philip Hergovich. It's going to be a belter. Don't miss it this Saturday, August the 16th. Watch only on DAZN. Of course, the fight itself, Itauma up against Dillian Whyte, is live with us right here on talkSPORT. Immense excitement about this. Can Itauma do it against Dillian Whyte? He's done it so far against everybody he's come up against, and now it's a bit of a test against the experienced Dillian Whyte. Over in Riyadh, and we're going to speak to Spencer Oliver in just a second. In actual fact, we're going to speak to Francis Warren in just a second, who is the manager of Moses Itauma. Over in Riyadh, Spencer caught up with Dillian Whyte, and he put this to him. Did Dillian realise that when he turned pro, Moses Itauma was just 6 years of age?
You're a boxer. You know how this thing goes. That's real boxing. That's you know, sometimes as a fighter, I know these guys tell you the question to us. As a fighter, you know these things. So that's sometimes when these guys say certain things, and then I'm like, Spence, you're a fighter. You should have a different and a better, more neutral opinion, because you're a fighter. You know the game goes. You know, it doesn't matter of someone's age, their experience, whatever. It's just fighting, bro. You know, you've been in there and the good and the very bad end of the game.
The facts are the facts, that if you're good enough, you're good enough. You know, like, it doesn't matter about that. It doesn't matter about that age, but it is about timing for sure. Like I say, like, this is a huge step up for him. Like, you know, where
really?
Like, it's a what for? Absolutely, for Moses Itauma, this is a huge step up.
I don't think so. Everyone's you know, got into you and your other colleague and the other professional people is nothing. It's a walk in the park for Moses. You know, people say I get blown in 1 or 2 rounds. You know, that's you guys are the professional. You're the real champion. I'm nothing. So I think it's a step up for to be honest. When you're someone who come from where I've come from, and we've been through what I've been through, and overcome what I've had to overcome, opinions don't really matter anymore, bro. You know, opinions don't matter. Listen, what did I get here? Did I win any ABA title? Did I go to the Olympics? Did I have any backing? Did I have any TV station? Did I have any strategic plan to get to world level? No, I got to world level because I took risks. I'm beating guys that was at world level when I was a nobody. You know what I mean? You used to see me come up to the Finch and spar with Derek and other guys that was up there. You understand? You know, and that's what I got here.
I mean, the inference here, from my point of view, is that Dillian's saying, well, he's come up the hard way, and all the talk before this fight this Saturday is about Moses Itauma and what he might achieve in the fight game. Dillian, meantime, is saying, well, look at me. I've done a lot, and don't you worry. I'll give a good account of myself against Moses Itauma in Riyadh this Saturday night. We shall see. The manager of Moses Itauma is son of Frank Warren, Francis Warren. I'm delighted to say that Francis joins us live on the show this lunchtime. Francis, good afternoon to you. Does Dillian have a point there? Has all the talk really been about your man Moses Itauma rather than Dillian and what he's achieved in the fight game?
Afternoon, gents. Oh, listen, I think Dillian was quite coy yesterday at the press events, you know, and he was very, very aloof about his chances, and I think it's basically because he's maybe continuing some of the narrative that's been set out about the fact that he's been written off, and I think that's a huge mistake. I think Dillian Whyte's a bad man, and he's got bad intentions as always. Moses has got it all to do. You know, I think, you know, we'll know what Moses is capable of doing, and what we hope he's going to go and do in the sport. I know how determined he is, and how much he wants this, and how badly he wants to become a household name in boxing, sport, as you know, and go on and win world titles. But there is a huge obstacle in his way on Saturday night in Dillian Whyte, and he's going to have to be on his A game, 100%.
But in reference to Dillian and his view on the world and who's judging him, Francis, you haven't put Moses in there to lose to Dillian. You put him in there because you think he can win this fight. You take the challenge very seriously, and we know that Dillian Whyte, once upon a time, was a significant fighter, but that was 2 or 3 years ago.
Absolutely. Listen, it is a step up for Moses. It's a great name on his record, and you know, I fully expect him to come through it on Saturday night. But Dillian Whyte, if you're not on it with someone like Dillian Whyte, and the
the experience he's got and the bad intentions that he will bring on Saturday night. You know, he looks in terrific shape. He's very cool, calm and collected. He doesn't seem particularly, like he's not aggravated by being written off. He's just taking it in his stride, and I think he's basically saying that if Moses can do it, he'll do it. But if he can't, I'm there to take him out.
And quite rightly so. But what is the better outcome for you, Francis? Is it for Moses to go in there and blast Dillian out in 2 or 3 rounds, or is it for him to be put in the way of a real test? Because we can see more from him if he gets more rounds and Dillian takes him deeper into the fight, if indeed it goes that way.
I think it's a win-win either way, Simon. If Moses goes in there and continues the devastating knockout performances that he's been putting in recently, against Dempsey, against Maris Watch, against Mike Balogun, then it's just going to continue the narrative that he is this devastating puncher and that he can go in there and dispatch people. He's making a massive step up against Dillian, and if he does get rid of Dillian, within 2, 3, 4 rounds, we've got some serious things to start discussing in the following weeks. However, if he does go past 6, 7, 8, and it goes in the later rounds, that's obviously going to set, that's going to bode well for Moses later in his career, because he was gathered some experience against a guy who's been there and done it at world level.
How's that? I mean, Francis,
it's a win-win for Moses. Either way, a win by any means necessary against a guy of Dillian White's pedigree is a win, and that's as far as we need to take it.
Fair enough.
I think.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of noise about if Isak vacates the WBO, the interim champion is Joe Parker. If Moses Itauma comes through this and destroys Dillian White, with all due respect to Dillian White, it's going to be difficult to hold back that particular opportunity. But I wanted to ask you something else about the fact that Moses, you're very close with Moses, you look after him, Francis, as I know that you do, spend a lot of time with him. This is the first situation where he's been headlining an event with a different set of expectations upon him, a different set of pressures. How's he responded to that? Because it's all part and parcel of the project Itauma to build him into the superstar that we all think he's likely to be.
It's incredible how much he's taken in his stride. I think he knows there's pressure on him, but it's only the pressure he puts on himself. I don't think he doesn't listen to the noise too much outside of what he's put, the expectations that he puts upon himself. I think that any sportsman or anyone involved in sport, Simon, I'm sure you'd appreciate, if you listen to the outside noise all the time, you just drive yourself crazy. Indeed. He goes to the gym, he does his job, and if he can execute the game plan that I'm sure that Ben Davison will put in place for him, then I don't think there's. Listen, boxing's boxing. You're always going to worry about your guy, but I don't think there's anything to worry about too much as long as he goes in there and he follows the instructions as he has done to a T so far in his career.
Francis, if he, as expected, comes through on Saturday night against Dillian White, is the next fight for Moses a world title fight?
Could well be. It could well be. Listen, it just depends on what Mr. Usyk does. It's a big. Alexander, quite rightly so, he holds all the cards in heavyweight boxing. There's a couple of interim champions, obviously Joseph Parker. He's next in line for Alexander. The WBA have got quite a complicated situation, as it always seems to be with the WBA, with all due respect. But Moses is highly ranked with all particularly those two governing bodies. He's making his way up the IBF rankings, and the WBC. I'm sure they'll wanting him to participate in their rankings at a higher level. The world is his oyster, and I think as long as he keeps doing what he's doing, opportunities will knock us pretty soon.
And just in a final sentence, how would you describe Moses' mood at this precise time?
He's excited. I think he's excited, and he's focused. I think that's the main. He's razor sharp in the gym. We've just come back from the gym, watching him, going through his final few sessions. He's razor sharp, razor focused, and I think he's very much looking forward to putting on a great performance on Saturday. But it's one not to take your eyes off. So make sure everyone tunes into the zone. Make sure you see that that Moses is taking it to that next level, and fingers crossed we get a fantastic performance against a guy who's been there and done it in Dillian. So make sure everyone tunes in.
It's a great matchup. Francis, thank you so much for joining us live from Riyadh this lunchtime. And don't forget, Moses Itauma against Dillian White is live on talkSPORT on Saturday night. It's going to be hot, hot, hot Francis
has done a great job with Moses. Yeah. He's harnessing a real talent there. And if he does go and do a job on Dillian, I hope it doesn't. I hope Dillian turns up. The challenge for me is when Dillian doesn't even know, and he was asked, if you win this fight, Dillian, you could be fighting next for a world title against Joe Parker because you'd be installed as a number 1 ranked WBO fighter.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. So you worry what the motivation is. But what I would really like to see is Dillian Whyte come out in the 4th round, having taken a few whacks from Moses Itauma and looking across the ring saying, now you're in a fight, son.
Right.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Simon. I want to see a fight. I want to see a closely contested one. But with Moses Itauma around, I doubt that we're going to do that. Having said that, we shall see. It's live on talkSPORT. Looking forward to it immensely. 32 degrees here in London this afternoon. Be careful of that sunshine. We'll be back tomorrow from 10.